On my birthday, my grandma planned to take my mom and me out for a nice meal. Suddenly, my mom covered her face and burst into tears, demanding, "The day you were born was the most painful day of my life. How dare you enjoy such a good meal?" I stared at her coldly and asked, "Did my grandpa ruin your birthday like this too?" Before she could react, I slammed the freshly bought cake onto the floor, flipped tables, threw chairs, and screamed hysterically. The moment I opened my eyes, I realized I had been reborn into this goddamn world all over again. My dad passed away early, and my mom raised me alone. It was tough, of course, tough for me, because my mom always saw me as a burden. My existence held her back from finding a second chance at love, so she neglected me completely, dumping me at my uncle's place for days or even weeks without a single visit. When she did come back, it was only to eat and take things before leaving without a second thought. Because of this, my aunt resented her deeply and took it out on me, treating me with nothing but disdain, beating and scolding me without mercy. Back then, I was young but already understood what it meant to live under someone else's roof. I endured the abuse without a word, desperately helping with chores and babysitting, hoping they'd see my worth and not throw me out. Unfortunately, they eventually sent me back to my mom, who was furious but had no choice but to keep me, her deadweight, but she was too busy socializing and chasing men to care about me. I starved at home, drinking cold water until my stomach felt ready to burst, suffering from incontinence, dizziness, and nausea, vomiting all over the floor. When my mom came back and saw it, she showed no concern, just slapped me across the face. "Are you dead or what? I worked so hard to keep this family together, and this is how you repay me. If I'd known you'd be so heartless, I should have aborted you back then I wouldn't be in this mess. Why is my life so miserable?" As she cursed, she sat down and started crying. Even then, she kept her back straight and didn't mess up her makeup, crying gracefully. Meanwhile, I lay on the floor, my face swollen and red, gasping for air like a ragged piece of cloth, unnoticed and ignored by everyone. What happened next? Well, I died, of course. It's almost laughable. I starved to death, while my mom was toasting with her friends. I died alone next to a trash can. I thought my pathetic life was finally over, but when I opened my eyes, I was back again. How fucking absurd. Hearing my mom's accusation and staring at the cake she'd bought, I sneered. "What, did my grandpa ruin your birthday too?" She froze. Before she could react, I hurled the cake to the ground, flipping tables, throwing chairs, and screaming wildly, "If you never wanted me, why did you give birth to me? You should have burned me along with Dad. Would have saved on an urn. You pile on makeup and never wear the same outfit twice. But I can't even get a decent meal. If you can't afford to raise a child, why have one? Did you just want the fun without the responsibility?" My bold words left them all utterly stunned. My mother trembled with rage, her teeth gritted in anger. "You little beast, if I'm a little beast, then what does that make you? And what about Grandma?" With that, I looked up at Grandma, my face full of resentment. "Grandma, she's insulting you." My mother trembled even more violently. Just then, someone knocked on the door, shouting, "What's going on?" It was the neighbor next door. The house was old, and the soundproofing was terrible. Even a slightly raised voice could be heard everywhere. With all my desperate screaming and the crashing sounds earlier, who knows how many people had heard it? Naturally, the nosy ones came to investigate. I quickly scrambled up from the floor, grabbed a handful of the smashed cake, and smeared it on my mouth. Then I rushed over and opened the door. Standing outside was Aunt Zhang, not a bad person, just too gossipy for her own good. She was exactly who I needed. Shouting, "Oh, child, what have you done? How did you end up like this?" I knew I looked a mess, but I wasn't afraid. I lifted my head and gave her a bright smile. "Aunt Zhang, it's my birthday today. My mom bought me a cake." As I spoke, I pointed behind me. When she saw the cake on the floor, her expression became indescribably complicated. My mother finally panicked. She was someone who cared deeply about appearances. No matter how bad things were at home, she had to look polished on the outside. She absolutely couldn't let outsiders see her as a laughingstock. She hurried over to me, pulled me aside, and forced a wide smile. "Sister Zhang, don't listen to her nonsense." "Ow, ouch." Before she could finish, I suddenly let out a cry of pain, clutching my arm with tears in my eyes. "Mom, I won't say anything next time. Okay, please don't pinch me anymore." Unintentionally, I rolled up my sleeve, revealing bruises all over my arm. A shocking sight. Aunt Zhang's eyes widened. "Oh, my dear, How could you do such a thing? My mom was stunned too, her eyes nearly popping out of her head. After all, she had no idea where these injuries came from. Hilarious, of course. I had pinched myself hard in the chaos earlier, really hard, and it hurt like hell. Shopping, sister-in-law, I know you're upset, but the child is innocent, you can't take your anger out on her, Aunt Zhang pleaded earnestly. My mom found it hard to explain and could only swallow her anger as she saw Aunt Zhang out. After closing the door, she turned around and raised her hand at me. I didn't dodge or flinch. Instead, I offered my face forward. Go ahead, hit me. I promise I'll scream even louder than before. Let everyone see how you abuse your own child. Her raised hand clenched into a fist, but in the end, she lowered it. What sin did I commit in my past life to give birth to a debt collector? Like you in this one. My mom retreated to her room. I shrugged indifferently, picked up a fork, and poked at the cake on the floor. Even though it had fallen, some parts were still edible. I was starving. Who am I to complain about spoiled food when I'm begging for it? As I ate, Grandma squatted beside me, hesitating to speak. I glanced at her. Grandma, I know what you want to say, but you can see what kind of life I'm living. If I don't go a little crazy, I'll really starve to death. But she's still your mother, you can't disrespect her. Respect is mutual. We're all human for the first time. Why should I be the one to suffer? Grandma sighed silently, took 100 yuan from her pocket and stuffed it into my hand. I said thank you and pocketed it. Early the next morning, I got up to go to school. Thanks to the 9-year compulsory education system and my good grades, which exempted me from tuition and fees, I had the chance to attend school at all. As I finished packing and was about to leave, my mom came out and saw the cake still on the floor. Her face immediately darkened. You brat, why haven't you cleaned this up? I shot her a sidelong glance. What are you barking about? Then, before she could start barking, I quickly ran out, closed the door, and slipped away. At the entrance of the neighborhood, I ran into Aunt Zhang, who was returning from her morning walk. I greeted her politely. Good child, Aunt Zhang said, patting my head. She stuffed a steamed bun into my hand. Still warm, eat it quickly, don't go to school on an empty stomach. I clenched the bun tightly, my eyes growing a little hot. Even outsiders could see I wasn't getting enough to eat. It's a pity my own family couldn't see it. How laughable. I thanked her softly and hurried off to school. Now that I'm in my 3rd year of junior high, it's a critical time for advancing to the next level of education. Every minute and second counts. In the past, I was busy with studying, taking care of the household, and often went without food, leaving me physically and mentally exhausted. In the end, I didn't get into high school. My mother was furious, thinking I had embarrassed her, and her expectations of me only grew. After graduating from junior high, I went straight to work. Being young, I could only do menial jobs like washing dishes and sweeping floors. Yet, there were still people who took a dislike to me. On payday, they cornered me in a narrow alley, snatched all my money, and even stripped me of my clothes. In the dead of winter, wearing only thin autumn clothes, I shivered uncontrollably from the cold and grew dizzy with hunger. I hadn't eaten for 3 days, counting on that paycheck to finally have a decent meal, but even that hope vanished. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and rummaged through a trash bin for some leftover food, just to get by. Unfortunately, I didn't get to eat much before I passed out. Now that I've been given a second chance, I won't repeat the same mistakes. I have only one thought in mind: I'm going to college and getting out of this disgusting place. First things first, I need to fill my stomach. At lunchtime, everyone heads to the cafeteria. I feel the money in my pocket, scan the room, and lock my eyes on the class beauty. She's a picky eater. She piles her plate with all sorts of dishes but only takes a few bites of each, throwing the rest away. What a waste, such a terrible waste. So, just as she's about to get up, I stride over decisively, press her shoulder down, and say, "Leave it to me." Startled by my sudden appearance, Su Xia turns pale with fright. By the time she recovers, I'm already shoveling food into my mouth with chopsticks like a starving ghost. I was busy eating and didn't have time to look up, so I gave a perfunctory response. I worked quickly, and in no time, a large portion of food had disappeared into my stomach. After I had eaten and drunk my fill, I wiped my mouth and looked up, only to find that Su Xia was still there. By then, she had composed her expression and was staring at me intently. I cleared my throat and apologized sincerely. I was really hungry, and seeing that you had so much left, I couldn't bear to let it go to waste, so I ate it. Su Xia looked me up and down, a hint of suspicion in her eyes. Don't you have money for food? No, I shook my head, unbothered by exposing my scars. My dad died, my mom doesn't care about me, and I often go without meals. Sometimes only eating once every 2 days. Su Xia covered her mouth in surprise. There are things like that. It was no wonder. She came from a happy family, spoiled and cherished since childhood, so she naturally couldn't imagine the life I led. I didn't blame her, I should thank her, so I took a deep breath and voiced my idea. I know you always buy a lot but eat very little, so, how about this? From now on, I'll eat whatever you can't finish, that way, nothing goes to waste. And the teacher won't criticize you for it during parent-teacher meetings. I had tried this several times before, and the homeroom teacher had specifically pointed it out during parent-teacher meetings, but Su Xia never corrected her behavior and continued to do as she pleased. At the time, I was incredibly envious that she could do as she wished, eat whatever she wanted, and never go hungry. I was even more envious that she had parents who loved her, while I had nothing. Faced with my proposal, Su Xia hesitated. Won't you feel uncomfortable eating my leftovers? Why would I feel uncomfortable? I retorted, looking completely justified. I'm on the verge of starving to death. I don't have time to be picky. Not only is your food delicious and clean, but even if it were thrown on the ground, I'd pick it up and eat it, to survive. There's no shame in that. Su Xia stared at me for a long time before finally nodding slowly. Do as you please. With that, she stood up and left. Only after she was gone did I let out a long sigh, looking at the empty plate in front of me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Of course, I minded, but as I said, when survival itself is a problem, pride seems insignificant. I just wanted to live a decent life. What was wrong with that? From that day on, during lunchtime, I would sit with Su Xia. After she finished eating, it was my turn to perform. At first, she always felt awkward and would leave as soon as she was done, and I was perfectly content with that. I was eating happily when suddenly someone knocked on the table. I looked up and saw several other classmates, both male and female, all wearing mocking expressions. I thought I was seeing things earlier, but you're really eating Su Xia's leftovers. Ugh, how disgusting. Have you no shame? If you're like this, why even come to school? Wouldn't it be better to go home, farm the land, and get married early? The endless stream of mockery and ridicule flowed into my ears. I tightened my grip on my chopsticks, took a deep breath, and looked up at them calmly. It's true I can't afford meals. Su Xia kindly gave me her food, and I'm grateful to her. If you're craving it, I can share some with you. No need to stand here being jealous. My retort left them flushed and furious. Who's craving it? Do you think everyone is as shameless as you, acting like a dog? I remained unfazed. I haven't stolen or robbed anything. Why should I be ashamed? Before they could come up with a response, a familiar voice sounded from behind me. Exactly, she hasn't stolen or robbed anything. What right do you have to attack her? I turned around and saw Su Xia. I had no idea why she had come back. The others scattered as soon as they saw her. Su Xia sat down across from me again, looking at me as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. What's wrong? I asked, stuffing a mouthful of stir-fried pork with peppers into my mouth. It was spicy and fragrant, absolutely delicious. I'm sorry. She began with an apology. I was confused and glanced down at the food in front of me, hesitating. Could it be that I wouldn't be allowed to eat it anymore? Of course not, she quickly clarified, waving her hands to explain. They have a problem with me and took it out on you. Hearing this, I finally understood but still didn't think much of it. I thought something was wrong. It's fine, as long as it doesn't interfere with my meal. After saying that, I continued eating, unaware of the complicated expression on her face. From that day on, whenever Su Xia got her meal, she would ask for an extra bowl. She would put the portions she wanted into her bowl and give the rest to me, then sit and eat with me instead of leaving. I understood her intention and silently took it to heart. Summer vacation arrived quickly, and I stayed at home, once again living a life of feast or famine. For someone like me who had just started enjoying a better life, this was pure torture. After starving for a meal and downing 2 large jars of water, I finally heard the sound of the door opening. My mom was back. Mom, I had barely started speaking when she pushed me by the shoulders and shoved me into the room. Stay in there, don't come out until I say so. With that, my mom closed the door. I pressed my ear against it and heard another man's voice outside. The two of them were chatting happily, my mom's voice soft and coquettish, almost dripping with sweetness. Suddenly, I sniffed the air. Was that the faint scent of braised meat? Unable to resist, I pushed the door open and walked out. At that moment, my mom was nestled in the arms of a strange man, the two of them clinging to each other, intimate beyond words. My sudden appearance took them both by surprise, so much so that they forgot to separate. Without glancing elsewhere, I walked right up to them, then flopped to the floor with a thud, clutching my stomach and looking utterly weak. "Mom, I'm so hungry, can you give me something to eat? I promise I won't get in the way of your important business, please." My mom's face visibly darkened. I continued to squirm on the floor, letting out an occasional feeble whimper. Witnessing this scene, Uncle Lin looked utterly bewildered. What's going on?" My mom reacted quickly, slapping her forehead. "Oh, this kid usually runs off to play outside. I thought you weren't home. Didn't expect you to be hiding in your room sleeping." As she spoke, she hurriedly yanked me up from the floor. Her movements far from gentle, though her words were sweet. "Why didn't you say something if you were home?" She smiled as she asked, but the malice in her eyes was almost overflowing. Her grip on my arm tightened relentlessly, as if she wished she could strangle me right then and there. I didn't hold back, howling loudly, "Mom, you're hurting me, ease up." With that, I shook off her hand, rolled up my sleeve, and revealed several fresh bruises on my slender arm. Heaven knows, this time it was all her doing. Uncle Lin's expression immediately darkened when he saw me. He waved me over, patted my head, and asked, "Hungry? Uncle has some braised meat here, want some first?" I nodded eagerly, my face full of longing. Uncle Lin was generous and gave me the whole pack of braised meat. I thanked him, hugged the meat, and went back to my room, closing the door behind me. As long as I had food, I wouldn't disturb them. I ate with relish. The door to my room opened again, and my mother stood in the doorway with her hands on her hips, looking fierce. As soon as she entered, she scolded, "You damn little brat, I didn't want to disturb your date." I interrupted her, licking the grease from my lips, and said seriously, "But I was too hungry. I haven't eaten for 2 meals and I'm starving." "Do you think any man would like a mother who starves her own daughter to death?" My mother was left speechless, glaring at me fiercely before finally slamming the door shut and leaving without another word. I didn't care. This braised meat could last me 2 or 3 meals. So at least I wouldn't go hungry for a while. My mother was gone for another 2 or 3 days, and when she returned, she brought another man with her. Uncle Lee frowned as he looked at me. "Why is this child so thin?" My mother sighed. "Little girls, they all care about their looks. She's afraid of getting fat and looking bad. I've prepared so much food for her, begging her to eat, but she won't even give me the time of day. What can I do? Kids just don't listen when they grow up." As she spoke, she lowered her head and sobbed a few times, making Uncle Lee's heart ache. He hurriedly comforted her and scolded me. "Child, why don't you understand your mother's good intentions?" Watching her put on an act, my already hungry stomach churned even more, and I couldn't stop the sour feeling rising in my throat. Suppressing the urge to vomit, I put on an innocent face and said, "Mom, this uncle is different from the one you brought home the other day." "Oh, but every time you bring an uncle home, they're all different. What good things did this uncle give you? Is there anything for me?" Hearing my words, my mother's body stiffened abruptly. Beside her, Uncle Lee's face immediately darkened, and the hand that had been gently patting her back dropped to his side, clenched into a fist. Choping, Uncle Lee took a deep breath, his tones somewhat strange. "Do you often bring different men home?" My mother panicked, shaking her head repeatedly. No, don't listen to this child's nonsense, she's lying." As she spoke, she glared at me fiercely. I pretended to be scared and quickly nodded. Yes, I'm lying. Mom has never brought other men home. Those clothes, jewelry, food, and things weren't given by those men." "Shut up." My mother trembled with rage, raising her hand toward me, but before the slap could land on my face, Uncle Lee had already turned and stormed away in fury. My mother anxiously chased after him, naturally leaving me unattended. I was quite pleased with the freedom, looking at the forgotten food on the table and revealing a knowing smile. How nice, there was something to eat again. After ruining 2 men in a row for her, my mother was furious. She closed the door, preparing to have a calm and thorough talk with me. "Lin Yen, tell me, what exactly do you want? I'm your birth mother. I gave birth to you and raised you, even if you don't know how to be grateful. Do you want to ruin my entire life? If I had known you were such a curse, I should have listened to your grandmother back then and drowned you at birth. Maybe then your father wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have ended up in this situation today." As she spoke, my mother's sorrow welled up inside her. She covered her face with her hands and began to sob, Her cries filled with profound grief. I sat across from her, my heart completely unmoved, even feeling a slight urge to laugh. I had long known she didn't like me, because I was a girl and couldn't carry on the family line. For Uncle Lee's family, because she believed I was the one who brought misfortune to my father. And because of my existence, she was treated poorly by her in-laws. Once her husband died, her in-laws cut ties with her. Really, I could cry. What virtue or ability do I have to possess such power? I refuse to take the blame. What I want is simple: let me eat and drink my fill, and if I can go to school, I won't cause trouble. I stared intently at her, word by word. Other than that, I have no other demands. Do you know how difficult it is for me, a widow, to live? If you don't understand me, fine, but how can you? Are you really struggling, truly struggling? I interrupted her tearful complaints, looking at her well-dressed appearance and smiling mockingly. When you buy clothes, when you go out to eat and drink lavishly, why don't you think about how difficult your life is? I just want to eat. It's not like I'm asking for the stars in the sky. If I don't have food to eat, I promise I'll make your life miserable. If you want to find a man, I'll ruin one for you, and then another. Go ahead and try. If you don't believe me. My mother's face twisted with anger, her eyes glaring as if she wanted to devour me alive. I felt no fear. I was no longer that naive, innocent child from before. I was a demon who had crawled out of hell. If anyone tried to bully me again, I would drag them straight down to hell with me. The standoff ended with my mother compromising, agreeing not to starve me on a whim anymore. However, she also proposed that I should start living on campus after the new semester began, to prevent me from suddenly going crazy again and ruining her plans. I had no objections to this. Compared to this home, I'd much rather stay at school, where I truly felt alive. When the holiday ended, my mother dropped me off at school to arrange for boarding and left me some money. I used part of it for meals, but most of it went toward buying practice workbooks. Having endured the hardships of my past life, I deeply understood the importance of education, though my learning conditions were poor, and I had to rely entirely on sheer effort. Even now, despite my hard work, the results were still half the effort for double the struggle, making me less outstanding among the vast army of students preparing for the high school entrance exam. Just before the exam, I fell ill. I barely made it through, and when I received my results, I couldn't help but sigh. The good news was that I got into high school. The bad news was that my scores were average, barely enough to get into an ordinary high school. My mother took great delight in this outcome. During a family dinner, she specifically brought it up, saying, "You were so insistent on going to school before, I thought you'd amount to something, but look at these scores. Aren't you embarrassed?" My aunt, never one to miss a chance to stir the pot, chimed in, "If you ask me, it's a waste of money for a girl to go to school anyway. She'll just get married sooner or later, and all that money will end up going to her husband's family. It'd be better to start working early, earn some money to help out at home, and show some respect to us elders. Don't go learning from those ungrateful types who only care about stuffing their own pockets and never think about their family." While belittling me, she didn't forget to take a dig at my mother. Classic auntie, never changing. My mother's face didn't look too good, but for once, the two of them actually agreed on something. So, instead of arguing as they usually did, they both turned to me with that familiar lecturing look. But I wasn't about to give them the chance. I shot up from my seat, swept through the dishes like a whirlwind, and devoured every single one. After finishing each dish, I'd lick my chopsticks to make sure my saliva was evenly distributed before moving on to the next. No exaggeration. By the time I was done, everyone at the table was stunned, their jaws practically welded to the floor. After what felt like an eternity, Grandma finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Yenner, you need to." I waved my hand, cutting her off. With my face smeared in grease and tomato sauce clinging to the corner of my mouth, I grinned like I'd just taken a bite out of a child, enough to scare half the old ladies in the room. "Grandma, you didn't say anything earlier, so don't start now. Otherwise, when I go crazy, I won't recognize anyone, family or not." Sure enough, Grandma was too terrified to utter another word, trembling as she hid behind Uncle. I curled my lip. They all thought I was an easy target. Everyone's faces had turned green, but I was full and satisfied as I walked away. Once I stepped out of the restaurant, the smile on my face instantly crumbled. I wandered aimlessly down the street, not knowing where to go, drifting from daylight into darkness until my legs grew weak and sore. I found a random step to sit on, propped my chin in my hands, and stared blankly at the road ahead, feeling as though I'd been sealed inside a snow Capped mountain, the cold around me crept in bit by bit, slowly numbing my heart. Liniener, what are you doing out here so late at night? A familiar voice suddenly rang in my ears, and I froze, instinctively looking up. When I saw Su Xia's curious yet concerned gaze, I suddenly felt as if a crack had appeared in that icy mountain, and a warm, bright light was streaming through. I didn't want to talk about the mess at home, so I casually made up an excuse. Oh, I didn't do well on the high school entrance exam, so I'm feeling down and came out to clear my head. I thought Su Xia would understand, but I overlooked one thing: not doing well. I remember your grades were pretty good, weren't they? Su Xia took out his phone and checked, looking puzzled. Look, our scores are about the same. My mom was so excited when she saw my results she almost cried. How is that not good? That's right. Su Xia was an academic underachiever, the kind who struggled even among struggling students. This time, our exam scores were neck and neck, which for him was an extraordinary performance, so he was especially thrilled. I sighed helplessly. Su Xia put away his phone, sat down beside me without any hesitation, wrapped an arm around my shoulder, and put on a thoughtful expression. I know you've been under a lot of pressure with studying lately, and I get that you're not satisfied with your results, but look on the bright side. Our scores are similar, so we can still go to the same school. Maybe even the same class, who knows, we might even end up as desk mates. That way, you won't have to worry about eating alone. Doesn't that make you feel a bit better? I thought about it and realized he had a point. Seeing me nod, Su Xia broke into a smile and patted my shoulder. So, you've got to stay positive. Even though this exam didn't go as planned, there will be more chances in the future. I believe in you. You'll make your dreams come true. Meeting Su Xia's trusting gaze, my battered soul felt as if it had been patched up with a bandage. And it seemed like I could hold on a little longer. I decided to sit down and have a proper talk with my mom. Of course, if she didn't want to sit, I could always roll around on the floor. After all, who isn't a little crazy these days? Fortunately, my mom still had some sense left. When I was willing to talk things through, she was reasonable too, but when she heard I wanted to continue with high school, she couldn't hold back anymore. How dare you even think about going to high school? Look at yourself. Are you even cut out for studying? You should go out and find a job sooner, make things easier for me. In a couple of years, find someone with a car and a house to marry, so I don't have to worry about you all the time. I looked at her petty, calculating expression, took a deep breath, and reminded myself to stay calm and not act impulsively. Losing my temper might be the best way to vent, but it wouldn't solve everything. Unless absolutely necessary, I had to handle things in a more civilized way. Do you really want me to go out and work? I asked seriously. Before my mom could nod, I cut her off. But then I'd have to live at home all the time, and you'd probably see me every day. At my age, I can't find any decent job. At most, I'd be washing dishes in a restaurant, and I'd probably get off work very late. If you bring a man home during that time, do you think it's appropriate? Would I disturb you? Or would you even feel comfortable doing that in front of me? Before I could finish, my mother was already furious, trembling as she pointed her finger at my nose. You little wretch, are you here just to torment me? I shrugged, neither confirming nor denying it. If that's what you think, there's nothing I can do. My mother was so angry she nearly fell backward. I'm really thinking of you, she exclaimed. If you let me continue my studies, I promise I won't appear in front of you unless absolutely necessary. How about that? My mother hesitated, so I added another heavy dose. Consider the tuition as a loan from you. Whether I get into university or not, I'll pay you back double. As soon as she heard this, my mother perked up and agreed without another word. Seeing her eager expression, I found it laughable. So, the bond between us as mother and daughter wasn't even worth as much as the tuition. How absurd. If it were anyone else, they'd probably have broken down and couldn't take it. But I'm different. I'm not an ordinary person. I'm a madwoman. In my world, there's no one else but me. No, that's not quite right. Maybe there's also Su Xia, but he's a good person, and I don't want him to become a madman. One pitiful person in this world is enough. Although I successfully negotiated with my mother, she was clearly unhappy about it, which was reflected in how she handled my living expenses. Before the semester started, she paid 3 years' tuition up front and gave me some living expenses, but she made it clear I should stay at school and not come back unless absolutely necessary. She said she'd give me money on time, and I believed her, but she only kept it up for 2 months before starting her antics again. She began skimping on my living expenses, reducing the amount little by little each time. Over time, the money I received dwindled to almost nothing. I knew what was going on. She had started dating a new boyfriend, he had some money, and she, with her strong sense of pride, didn't want him to look down on her, so they usually split the bill on dates. If he bought her a gift, she'd return one of similar value. She didn't have much savings to begin with, and she spent money lavishly in her daily life, so she quickly found herself in a tight spot. My grandmother wanted to help, but her ability was limited, and my aunt kept a close eye on her, so it was like trying to put out a fire with a cup of water, not very effective. Better to let others suffer than oneself. My mother naturally deducted from my living expenses to make up for her own financial shortfall, which, in a way, was understandable. The problem was, the living expenses she gave me were already meager. When I first enrolled, she went around the cafeteria asking about prices, jotting down in a little notebook which dishes were the cheapest, then calculating the bare minimum for living expenses, and even on that basis, she still skimped. If it weren't for Su Xia, I would have starved long ago. It wasn't that she was stingy, she was cruel. She simply didn't care about me at all. Honestly, with Su Xia around, I didn't have to worry about food or drink, but that living allowance was what I used to buy practice workbooks. Diligence can make up for lack of talent, and practice makes perfect. I must study hard and get into a good university, to stand out among the vast army of students taking the college entrance exam. I cannot afford to relax for even a moment. During class, I listen attentively, and as soon as class ends, I grab my books and rush to the office, cornering the teacher at their desk to ask endless questions. When I return to the dormitory at night, my roommates are already in bed asleep, so I take out my exercise book and sit in the hallway. The hallway lights are motion activated and turn off every 30 seconds. At first, I would cough to keep them on, but doing it too often would disturb others. Once, I was scolded harshly by someone, and I didn't argue back. I just bowed my head and apologized sincerely. After that, I moved to the landing between the staircases, far from the dorm rooms, where my noise wouldn't bother anyone. The only problem was how cold it was. The windows were old and damaged, but they couldn't be opened. In winter, the wind would seep through the cracks in the windows and chill me to the bone. In summer, it was unbearably stuffy. Many times, I'd press my face against the window cracks and take a deep breath of air. The momentary coolness was what kept me going. As for mosquito bites, they were a minor issue, because I needed to hold a pen. I couldn't wear gloves, and it wasn't uncommon for my hands to develop chilblains. I didn't mind, but Su Xia couldn't stand it. If you ruin your hands, you won't be able to write during the college entrance exam, and then you'll really cry, he said. I just smiled. There was no other way. My family couldn't afford tutoring fees, so I had to rely on hard work. At least I was seeing results. Yes, hard work really does pay off. When I first started school, I ranked 937th out of over 1,000 students. Now, as the semester nears its end, I've climbed to 300th. The teachers were amazed by my progress, and my classmates looked at me with envy. Only Su Xia looked at me with eyes full of concern. I comforted him, saying, if you really care, then work hard too. Let's try to get into the same university, and I'll keep eating your food. I don't know if my words moved him, but he really started putting in the effort. I was pleased, so I pushed myself even harder. Solving problems frantically, I wanted to buy every exercise book on the market and go through them 10 or 20 times, but now, my living expenses were shrinking, and I simply couldn't afford them. I had finally grown a pair of wings, ready to soar into the blue sky, but someone was determined to break them and then call me useless. Was I really useless? I refused to believe it, so, on Friday night, I pretended to be sick, asked for leave, and headed off with my backpack to find my mom. Oh, my dear mother, your nemesis has arrived. As usual, every Friday evening, my mom would gather with her colleagues at a fixed restaurant. My timing was just perfect. The dishes had just been served, and they were raising their glasses, laughing and chatting, ready to toast. My mother's cheerful reply turned into a pitiful cry, startling her so much that her hand trembled. When she turned and saw me, she was completely stunned. What are you doing here? Clearly, she hadn't expected me to show up at this moment. I didn't say a word. Instead, I stared longingly at the dishes on the table, my eyes wide and unblinking, looking as if I was drooling with hunger. Seeing this, an auntie-colleague quickly greeted me warmly. This is Xiuping's daughter, right? It's been so long since I last saw you. You've grown so much. Come, join us and eat. As she spoke, she handed me a pair of chopsticks. Clutching them obediently, I thanked her. Thank you, Auntie. I haven't eaten in 2 days, so I'm really hungry. Upon hearing this, everyone's expressions changed, and the way they looked at my mother shifted. Pretending not to notice, I continued, of course, it's not my mom's fault, even though she says girls are nothing but money losers and don't need to eat well, just enough to survive, since we'll just marry a rich man in the future anyway. But I think she still cares about me, knowing I hadn't eaten. She specifically told me she was here and asked me to come find her. At this point, everyone's faces turned a kaleidoscope of colors, quite a spectacle to behold. My mother, caught in the middle, was trembling with anger, grinding her teeth. What nonsense are you spouting? Didn't I give you money for food? Of course you did. I nodded vigorously, my expression sincere. My mom gives me 200 yuan a month. I've never seen so much money before. What can 200 yuan a month even do? An auntie beside me muttered, my son lives at school too, and he needs at least 200 yuan a week. Sometimes even that's not enough. Another uncle chimed in, this little girl is so skinny, she's probably starving. Listening to everyone's murmurs, my mother couldn't take it anymore. Forcing a smile, she stood up to explain, it's all my fault. I was too busy last month and forgot to give her money, and don't be mad at mom, I'll pay more attention from now on, okay? Watching her, clearly furious but putting on a brave face, I felt incredibly satisfied inside. On the surface, I showed no trace of it, nodding meekly and mumbling softly, Mom, as long as you don't hit me and give me food to eat, I'll do whatever you say. Crack. I clearly heard the sound of the mask on her face shattering. She took a deep breath, forced a smile, grabbed my hand, and dragged me out to a deserted corner. With a fierce shake of her hand, she demanded, Lin Yenner, what exactly do you want? Are you trying to ruin my reputation? Didn't we agree that I'd let you go to school, and you wouldn't disturb my life? What's the meaning of this now? Trying to go back on your word, is that it? Don't forget, I'm your mother. I can let you go to school, and I can also make sure you don't. Watching my mother's furious expression, I rubbed my wrist expressionlessly, my heart completely unruffled, even feeling a bit like laughing. I didn't want to go back on my word. You're the one who broke the promise. Since you can't keep what you agreed to, I don't mind reminding you. My mother, knowing she was in the wrong, had nothing to say. She rummaged in her pocket for a long time, pulled out 500 yuan, stuffed it all into my hand, and pointed at my nose, warning me, I've given you the money, you are not to appear in front of me again, or I'll break your legs. Clutching the money, I smiled, as long as you give me the money on time and in full every month, I promise I'll never appear in front of you again. Understood, now get lost. Obediently, I took the money and left. After walking some distance, I looked back. My mother had already returned and was saying something to her colleagues, smiling like a flower. Actually, she really looks quite pretty when she smiles. It's a shame I rarely get to see it. From then on, my mother indeed gave me the money on time and in full, never shortchanging me again, and I, as agreed, never went to cause trouble for her again. During holidays, winter and summer vacations, I didn't go home either, which could be considered a bit of filial piety from me as a daughter. I was doing fine at school. My homeroom teacher had just started working and lived in the school's staff dormitory. On weekends, I would report to her on time, asking questions, doing exercises, asking more questions, and continuing with more exercises, over and over, relentless and unending. I've always known I'm not some exceptionally clever child. All I can rely on is my unwillingness to admit defeat and my desire to strive and climb upward, so no matter how difficult the process, even if I have to grit my teeth until they shatter, I will persevere. As for food, what used to be my biggest worry had now become the least of my concerns. I was still Su Xia's dedicated proxy eater. With her around, not only did I not have to worry about food, I even ate better. Within a year, I was no longer skin and bones. My face had filled out a bit. As for clothes, 2 sets of school uniforms were enough for me to change and wash every single second of my time. I wanted to spend on doing problems. I simply had no energy to spare for things like dressing up or grooming. I didn't have the time. One day, Su Xia suddenly became obsessed with buying matching best friend outfits, always shoving an identical piece of clothing into my hands. At first, I found it a bit strange. Since when were we that close? Su Xia grinned mischievously, flashing her teeth. We've been sharing meals already, aren't we best friends? Watching her put on that fierce, exaggerated expression, and then looking down at the clothes in my hands, I lowered my head and smiled knowingly. when she found out I couldn't afford English audio recordings, she would boldly shove her MP3 player into my hands without giving me a chance to refuse. When she learned I stayed at school during winter and summer breaks, Su Xia didn't hesitate to bring me back to her home. At first, I wanted to refuse. She had already helped me so much, and I didn't want to trouble her further, but her reason was convincing enough. My mom is so happy about my recent academic progress. She really wants to meet you. If you don't come, she'll think you look down on her and be heartbroken. Good heavens, Mother Mary, how could I dare refuse? So I followed her home. It was my first time stepping into that luxurious villa, my first time encountering servants, and my first time meeting such a kind, gentle, and beautiful mother. Su Xia's mother, elegant and noble, with a warm, loving smile. She held my hand and showered me with praise, far from being disgusted by the chilblains on my hands. She looked as if her heart was breaking, nearly moved to tears. As I looked at her, I couldn't help but wonder how my own mother would have reacted, probably with disdain, telling me to stay away so I wouldn't dirty her new dress. How absurd. I settled into Su Xia's home, where we studied, ate, and lived together. Her room was dreamy and beautiful, like a princess's chamber straight out of a fairy tale. Because of my arrival, an extra bed was added to that princess room, identical to hers. She told me, "You're a princess too." Yes, I was a princess too. With Su Xia's help, I saved a lot on living expenses, allowing me to buy more practice workbooks and solve more problems. The knowledge in my mind kept accumulating, so full it felt like it might overflow, but I reveled in it, never tiring. Studying was the most effective way for me to escape my predicament, day after day, year after year. Relentless and unyielding, my grades improved steadily, and my ranking climbed higher, from 200th place to 100th, then into the top 50, the top 30, the top 10. When I finally broke into the top 5, I sat alone in the empty classroom, clutching my report card and sobbing uncontrollably. The feeling of seeing my efforts finally bear fruit was beyond words. After I finished crying, I looked up to find a cup of milk tea on the desk. I knew Su Xia had left it there. She was always like this, seemingly careless on the surface, yet carefully protecting my sensitive, fragile self-esteem. My mom actually reached out to me, which really surprised me. When I found out the reason, I couldn't help but laugh. It turned out that my grades had been getting better and better, and the neighbors couldn't stop praising me when they talked about it. My mom, being the vain person she is, would never miss out on something like this. So, for the first time ever, aside from giving me living expenses, the mother and daughter who never saw each other actually sat down to have a meal together. It was truly rare. I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted to enjoy the food. My mom had intended to chat while we ate, but seeing that I kept eating without stopping, she couldn't sit still anymore. "Sweetie, you did really well on this mock exam. You've made me proud. I always knew you'd amount to something. Uncle Zhao heard about it and couldn't stop praising you. He even said he'd invite you over to his place someday. What do you think?" I put down my chopsticks and stared straight at her, making her so uncomfortable that she couldn't meet my eyes and kept looking away. Finally, I let out a scoff. "So now you think I'm cut out for studying? That's not what you said before, definitely not what you said before. And who's this Uncle Zhao? Another man you found somewhere, inviting me over. Do I even know him?" "Uncle Zhao means well," she said, worried that I'd misunderstand. My mom quickly explained. "He's someone I've been seeing recently. We're getting along really well. He has a child too, 2 years younger than you, but his grades aren't as good as yours. He's really worried about it." "Sweetie, since your grades are so good, why don't you help Uncle Zhao's son with his studies? It would be doing me a favor, and it would benefit you too. Once we get married, he definitely won't treat you poorly." So that's what this was about. No wonder she suddenly reached out to me out of the blue. There's always an ulterior motive. I rolled my eyes and firmly refused. "Don't even think about it." My mom's smile stiffened, but she still wouldn't give up. "Don't be difficult. This matter is non-negotiable." I didn't give her a chance to say more. With an expressionless face, I said, "Say one more word, and I'll flip this table and slam you to the ground. Don't believe me, just try." Remembering my past outbursts, my mom immediately backed down. Without another word, she got up and left, shooting me a fierce glare on her way out. I didn't care. A glare wouldn't kill me. Finally, the day of the college entrance exam arrived. I was all set and ready to go, but I never expected to see my mom waiting outside the exam hall. For a moment, I thought she had come for me, and a tiny flicker of excitement rose in my heart, but when I took a closer look at what she was wearing, I understood. She wasn't here for me, she was here to show off. At some point, it had become a trend for mothers to wear kipayos on exam day, symbolizing a successful start. Outside the exam hall, mothers in kipayos were everywhere, all there to bless their children. Even Su Xia's mom was no exception. She held both of our hands, giving us endless words of advice, each sentence filled with care and concern. I nodded obediently, my heart filled with emotion. Meanwhile, my mother, also dressed in a cheongsam, was posing and striking various postures in front of the camera lens. Even when the reporters were interviewing others, she would squeeze her way in to make sure she was noticed. Afraid of being left out of the shot, people around her pointed and whispered, their words dripping with disdain. I caught the gist of it. My mother and her latest prospect had broken up again, now alone, and with age catching up to her, her prospects were far from what they used to be. In the past, she had aimed too high, looking down on this one and that one, offending everyone in the process. Now, filled with regret, she wanted to turn back, but it was too late, the opportunity was long gone. Left with no other choice, my mother decided to take an unconventional path, hoping to become a celebrity to boost her own value. It was utterly absurd, but it was exactly the kind of thing she would do. I had no comment on the matter. I was here to take the exam, to change my own destiny. Other people's affairs had nothing to do with me. When I received the admission letter, I felt a sense of disbelief. I kept opening it, examining it, putting it back, and opening it again, even though I had prepared for this moment. When the result finally arrived, I still found it hard to believe. I had actually been accepted into my dream university, and with exceptional grades at that. Not only was my tuition waived, but I was also eligible for various subsidies. For someone like me, who in my past life hadn't even made it to high school, this was nothing short of a life-changing transformation. I tried to hold back, but in the end, I couldn't help it. I sat on the floor, clutching the admission letter, and burst into tears. But this time, I knew these tears weren't born of sorrow. They marked the beginning of a brand new chapter in my life. My mother was also thrilled, clamoring to throw a celebration banquet for my admission. This was a big deal, she insisted. It had to be done properly and on a grand scale. She even dragged my grandmother, uncle, and aunt into the planning, and they huddled together, discussing it with great enthusiasm. Just as the excitement reached its peak, I poured cold water on their plans. No need, Su Xia's mother is already helping me prepare. What? At these words, they were stunned, and my mother flew into a rage, her eyes wide with fury. How could such an important event as a celebration banquet be left to an outsider? Who exactly is your mother here? I smiled faintly. What do you think? I ignored her and turned to the others. My grandmother and uncle looked somewhat awkward, while my aunt, as clueless as ever, sidled up to me with a cheerful grin. Our Nyener is really something. I always knew you were special, even when you were little, I replied. Oh, really? That's not what you used to say. Her smile froze. I checked the time. I have to go to my celebration banquet now. I'll be on my way. With a wave of my hand, I walked away without a second glance, leaving them to their reactions. Behind me, I could faintly hear angry shouts and arguments, but they gradually faded into the distance. I was packing my bags to leave for school when my mother came dawdling over to me just before I left. She stood to the side, hesitating to speak, but I ignored her, busy with the final touches of my packing. After all, barring any unexpected events, I would never return to this place again. Probably realizing she wouldn't get a response from me, she finally spoke up, her voice trembling as she called out to me, "You're about to go off to college. Do you want me to see you off?" "No need," I replied without turning my head, continuing with what I was doing. My tone indifferent. "I've already bought my train ticket, and an upperclassman will meet me at the station, but you're just a young girl who's never been far from home. What if something happens?" I couldn't bear it. She kept chattering on, and I finally turned to look at her. A mocking smile plastered across my face. I'd never lived in a dorm before, and I'd never been left alone at home, but I made it through all of that, didn't I? Back then, you didn't care about me at all, leaving me to fend for myself, and now you're pretending to be the caring, loving mother. What? Can't find a man now? No interest in dressing up, feeling like life is boring, so you remember you have a daughter and want to rediscover maternal love and family bonds. It's unnecessary, really unnecessary. My mother had aged, the wrinkles around her eyes growing deeper, her presence nowhere near as imposing as it once was. After my harsh words, she didn't get angry. Instead, she looked deeply sad, as if filled with remorse. but I didn't believe it. Even if she regretted how she treated me back then, the damage was already done. Did she think her regret now meant I had to forgive her? Forgive? I would never forgive her in this lifetime. Mom, you will always be my mother. I won't abandon you, but I won't love you either. From now on, we won't have any further ties. Once I can earn money, I'll send you the minimum support required by law, and after that, let's never see each other again. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of how many times I nearly starved to death, of the times you cursed me and ignored me. Your life is a mess, but mine is just beginning. I don't want you to rob me of my hopes for the future, for a partner, for children. I will live well, and whether you do or not, that's your business. I took out an envelope and placed it on the table. This is the tuition I borrowed from you back then, now returned with double the principal and interest. Part of this money is from my summer job, and part is from a school award. Returning it means I owe you nothing. No, I was just. My mother waved her hands in panic, refusing. I was joking. You're my child. How could I take your money? Whether you were joking or not, we both know the truth. I didn't accept her excuses. They were too fake. Whatever you think, I've given what I owed. Let's part ways here. With that, I picked up my packed luggage and left without looking back, walking away from the home that had trapped me for so many years. Behind me, it seemed like someone was calling out, but the sound was indistinct, and I didn't turn back. College life was fulfilling and busy. Even with the financial aid from the school, I still used my spare time to work part-time. Of course, I didn't slack off in my studies either. I knew full well how hard-won this opportunity to learn was. It was something I had fought for with my very life. During the freshman orientation, I unexpectedly ran into an old acquaintance. Su Xia, what are you doing here? I asked. Su Xia appeared remarkably calm and unfazed, waving a hand dismissively. I didn't do well on the exam the first year, so I repeated a year, finally managed to get into the same school as you. I was a bit surprised. Why insist on coming here? I remembered his grades from last year weren't bad. He had cleared the first-year cutoff. We even held our college celebration parties together back then. At the time, she seemed a bit down, and I comforted him, saying it didn't matter if we weren't at the same school. With communication so advanced these days, we could still keep in touch often. But after starting university, I entered a new phase of life, busy and occupied, only finding time to call him occasionally. He never said much about it. Unexpectedly, Su Xia tilted her head, tapping her chin with a finger. Probably because I'm used to eating with you. Without you around, I just feel all out of sorts. I was dumbfounded. What kind of reason was that? Su Xia wore an expression of absolute certainty. That's just how it is, she said, then hooked her arm around my neck, hanging off me like a lazy koala. You have no idea how I've struggled through this past year. You have to make it up to me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, quickly pleading for mercy. All right, I'll do whatever you say. Just let go of me first, okay, please. We'll see how you behave. A gentle breeze drifted by, the girls' laughter fading into the wind. I finally stepped out of the place that had once trapped me for a lifetime, leaving behind that mountain of endless waves. The future may hold more hardships and challenges, but I believe no difficulty will ever hinder my progress, for I have learned to love myself and live for my own sake. Even more fortunate, I met a lifelong best friend during the most difficult time of my life. Someone who made me feel warmer than a mother ever could. I have endured hardships, but heaven has been relatively kind to me. So I am grateful. My fate is in my own hands, not in heaven's. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. In my previous life, my best friend Su Lin and I were admitted to the hospital at the same time to give birth. I fell into a coma due to a difficult labor. When I woke up, my doctor husband told me that the baby was stillborn at birth, and my uterus had been removed. I completely lost the chance to become a mother, and Gu Chen also thought I was no longer worthy of him, constantly mocking and belittling me. In a moment of utter despair, I agreed to the divorce, yet, he turned around and made a grand, public proposal to Su Lin, the dean's daughter, showering her newborn daughter with affection. My mother couldn't bear the shock and suffered a heart attack, ending up in the emergency room. Not only did Su Lin personally perform the surgery, but after my mother passed away, she also helped me cover the enormous medical expenses. For this, I was deeply grateful and willingly stayed at her home as a nanny, taking care of her entire family with all my heart. 20 years later, when the child was diagnosed with uremia, they abandoned her in the hospital to die. Under my questioning, I finally learned that I was the child's biological mother. It was Su Lin who had stolen my child back then, ruining my life. Biting back the bitterness, I agreed to donate. But they operated on me without anesthesia. In the end, I was literally tortured to death on the operating table. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Su Lin finished her postpartum confinement, holding her child with a face full of joy. Su Xian, you must come to my daughter's full-month celebration tomorrow, even though everyone says you're unlucky, that you brought misfortune to your own child. You're still my best friend, and I won't look down on you. Having children is a matter of luck. You just don't have the fortune to be a mother, but don't worry, I'll have my daughter call you godmother in the future. Just remember to give her a big red envelope. I opened my eyes to the sound of Su Lin's smug voice. She was standing by my hospital bed, holding her child as if showing off. Her splattering saliva sprayed all over my face, and her triumphant expression stung my eyes even more. Xin, don't be too upset. If you want to blame someone, blame your own bad luck. Look at your Gu Chen, he's so strong and healthy. How come you can't even give him a child? To be honest, you shouldn't cling to Gu Chen anymore, just divorce him quickly. He's handsome and talented, and he became the head of his department at such a young age. If he spends his whole life with you without even having a child of his own, won't he become a laughingstock? Even the doctors and nurses in the hospital nodded in agreement. That's right, sister-in-law, Director Gu treats you so well. You really should think more about him. Even though the one-child policy is in place now, if you can't even have one child, what will you do when you get old? Recalling my past life, when Gu Chen and Su Lin used a scalpel to cut through my flesh bit by bit without anesthesia, that heart-wrenching pain made me tremble uncontrollably. I remained silent, only fixing Su Lin with a gaze full of hatred. She grew increasingly nervous under my icy gaze, instinctively pulling the child's swaddling blanket tighter and turning sideways with a guarded expression. Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't say anything wrong. As a woman, being unable to bear children is a major taboo. Even if you and Gu Chen grew up together, what does it matter? Without a child, he'll still look down on you. I ignored her taunts and simply reached out toward the child in her arms. Is this really your child? Let me have a look. Su Lin's face turned pale as she tightly shielded the child in her arms, covering her so much that the little one burst into loud cries. What are you doing? Can't have one of your own, so you want to snatch mine? I'm telling you, this is a hospital. If you dare lay a finger on my daughter, don't blame me for being rude to you. A hen that can't lay eggs will be abandoned sooner or later. Hearing the child's cry, my heart ached as if pierced by a needle, and my hand, which had been raised mid-air, suddenly froze. She shot me a disdainful glare, then ran out of the hospital room with the child in her arms. Her steps were so hurried that she knocked over chairs and a kettle, not even bothering to pick them up. My heart aches unbearably. It's clearly my child, yet she snatched him away. In my previous life, I was separated from my daughter for a full 20 years, and until my death, I never got to hear her call me Mom with my own ears. Why did they take my child and then cause me to die so miserably? I couldn't hold back my tears, and with a sudden surge of strength from somewhere deep within, I leaped out of bed and grabbed her. Under her panicked gaze, I glared sternly and said sharply, Su Lin, let me see the child. No sooner had I spoken than I was violently shoved aside. The immense force nearly knocked me off my feet, and I stumbled to the ground in a disheveled heap. I lifted my tear-blurred eyes, meeting Gu Chen's icy gaze directly. He looked down at me from his lofty position, letting out a cold snort. Su Xian, have you had enough of this commotion? This is a hospital. If you want to go crazy, go home and do it. Don't embarrass me here. Now the whole hospital knows you can't have children. Aren't you ashamed enough? How could you be so vicious as to try to steal Lin's daughter? Have you no shame at all? My already weak body was slammed with great force, and now it hurt so much that I felt as if I were about to fall apart. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to hold on, stubbornly lifting my head to look at the man I had loved for 8 years. Gu Chen and I grew up together. Back then, he wanted to study medicine, but his family was too poor, and his mother threatened to take her own life to force him into a technical school. I was the one who voluntarily gave up my studies, pulling strings to find a job in a factory, working myself to the bone every day just to earn a little extra for his tuition. After he graduated, I even quit my job on my own initiative, taking care of everything at home so he could focus on his work without worry. Back in school, my grades were clearly much better than his. After we got married, he thought I was foolish, that I hadn't read enough books, and his words were filled with contempt for me. He even said more than once that we had nothing in common and wanted a divorce. I never took it to heart, only devoted myself wholeheartedly to him, but it wasn't until the moment I died that I realized he had long grown tired of me. Without his tacit consent, Su Lin wouldn't have dared to openly replace my child. Even my uterus was deliberately removed by him, all to force me into a divorce. In my previous life, I did as he wished and, in despair, agreed to the divorce. I never expected that when he proposed to Su Lin, my mother happened to witness it. My mother was so furious that she had a heart attack on the spot. By the time I received the news and rushed to the hospital, she had already passed away. I knelt at the entrance of the emergency room, crying until I was choked with sobs, but Su Lin told me, with a look of condescension, "I performed the surgery for your mother as soon as possible. It's just her own bad luck that she died on the operating table. Since we're best friends, I'll cover the treatment cost for you first. You'll have to find a way to pay me back." I was deeply moved and knelt before her for a long time. Afterward, in order to repay the huge medical bill, I became her unpaid nanny, a role I held for 20 years. I endured the heartache, watching her and Guchen show affection in front of me. All the dirty and tiring work was left to me, yet she never allowed me to take care of her daughter, Guanin. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming she was just uneasy about entrusting her child to an outsider. Now I understand. She was afraid that the bond between Anan and me would reveal something unusual. It wasn't until she and Gu Chen had their own child that she finally handed Guanin over to me. From then on, she and Gu Chen began to treat Anan with cold indifference. Even if she just ate an extra piece of meat, it would lead to a severe beating. At such a young age, she was covered in bruises every day and couldn't even get enough to eat. I was the only one in the whole family who cared for her, secretly saving food to give to her, so she wouldn't starve to death. At the age of 20, Guanin was diagnosed with uremia, but Su Lin and Gu Chen showed no concern, simply abandoning her in the hospital to await death. Unable to bear it, I questioned them on why they could be so cruel, refusing to save their own flesh and blood. It was only then that they told me with utter disdain that Guanin was actually my daughter. In that moment, I felt as if struck by lightning, stunned and unable to believe it. After a brief silence, I suppressed the heartache and only asked them to arrange the surgery as soon as possible to transplant my kidney to Anan. What I didn't expect was that they were so insane that they sent me to the operating table without even giving me anesthesia. Gu Chen, with a mocking smile, personally cut open my flesh. The intense pain nearly made me pass out, but I forced myself to stay awake, not daring to close my eyes. My Anan, I want to live to reunite with her and make up for the 20 years of missing maternal love, but in the end, I couldn't hold on, and I breathed my last in despair and resentment. Before I died, my ears were filled with the mocking voices of Gu Chen and Su Lin. "Stupid as a pig, you deserve to be deceived so miserably, serving as our workhorse for a lifetime, only to learn the truth on your deathbed. Must be a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? Who told you to act so high and mighty back then, looking down on us who had worse grades than you? In the end, you were still played for a fool by us." At that moment, I felt nothing but overwhelming hatred, a pain that pierced straight through my heart. How dare they manipulate my life, exploit my trust, and humiliate and hurt me so wantonly? Fortunately, heaven has eyes, allowing me to be reborn on the day before I was discharged from the hospital. This time, I absolutely cannot let them bully and humiliate me again. I suppressed the blood rising in my throat and struggled to stand up. The love of the past has already faded, and all that remains in my gaze toward him is coldness. "Gu Chen, you deliberately removed my uterus, making me unable to have children. Isn't it just to force me into a divorce?" Upon hearing this, Gu Chen's expression changed. He stumbled back a few steps, his voice tinged with a tremor. "You, don't talk nonsense. When did I ever say I wanted a divorce with you?" A mocking smile curled at the corner of my lips. "Is that so? So you don't plan on divorcing me?" Gu Chen steadied himself, his gaze toward me turning strange. "You're utterly shameless. I only married you back then out of consideration for our childhood bond. Who knew you'd be so useless? You finally got pregnant, only to give birth to a stillborn child. Even if that were the case, now you don't even have a uterus. I haven't looked down on you, yet you dare to question me in front of so many people. You're only doing this to test my sincerity. What kind of person do you take Gu Chen for? Would I ever do something so treacherous?" He spoke with righteous indignation, wearing an expression of deep reflection and pain, as if he had truly suffered an immense injustice. Even the aunties who had gathered to watch couldn't help but speak up in his defense. "Indeed, Director Gu is truly pitiful. not only having to bear the pain of losing a child but also being questioned by his own wife like this. Speaking of which, among the 3 unfilial acts, having no descendants is the greatest. Even if Director Gu really wants a divorce, it's only natural. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, having known him for many years. I never expected him to be so shameless, lying through his teeth, twisting the truth to such an extent. I only hate myself for being blind and foolish, for not seeing through his true face all these years. Gu Chen made no attempt to hide his disgust, his tone growing even more impatient. What's so funny? You've completely humiliated me, and you still have the nerve to smile. I think I need to seriously consider whether this marriage is worth maintaining. Alright, after you're discharged from the hospital, go stay at your mother's place for a while. Let's both take this opportunity to cool off. I nodded silently in agreement, probably thinking he had everything under control. A flicker of smug satisfaction crossed Gu Chen's eyes. I let out a light laugh, staring straight into his eyes, and spoke word by word. However, before I'm discharged, I'd like to ask Director Gu, you said my child was stillborn, so where is he now? Since I woke up, I haven't seen my own child. Even if it was stillborn, you should at least take me to see him so I can have peace of mind. In my previous life, it wasn't until I took my last breath that I found out Su Lin was never pregnant at all. From the very beginning, she had made up her mind to steal my husband and child. What's laughable is that I was completely unaware, even cooking her favorite meals myself every day and delivering them to the hospital while heavily pregnant. What I thought was a deep bond between best friends turned out to be nothing but a complete trap from start to finish. Sure enough, as soon as I asked, Gu Chen panicked. Instantly, he tried his best to hide his guilt, even his tone weakened a bit. Are you out of your mind? It's been so long, the child has long been laid to rest. I was just afraid you'd be heartbroken, so I didn't dare let you see. Don't be ungrateful. Thinking back to my past life, I trusted him and naively believed he really didn't let me see the child because he was afraid I'd be heartbroken. Now, I refuse to believe even a single word. However, the onlookers were utterly convinced, all praising Gu Chen for his meticulous attention to detail. Seeing Gu Chen grow more and more smug, I shifted the focus of the conversation and pointed at Su Lin, demanding, I also want to ask, Dr. Su and I have the same due date, but she isn't even married. Whose child is hers? Really? Probably not expecting me to suddenly change the subject, Gu Chen froze in place. Su Lin tightened her arms around the child in her embrace, her face flushed bright red, yet she couldn't manage to utter a single word. Just as everyone was left speechless in astonishment, someone suddenly stepped forward from the crowd. It was the hospital's new intern doctor, Xie Han. He said in front of everyone, looking deeply embarrassed, the child is mine. We didn't want anyone to know originally. Dr. Su and I dated for a while, but we broke up a long time ago because we weren't compatible. She has a kind heart and said that no matter what, the life in her belly is still a life, even if it means being looked down upon. She insisted on giving birth. I just glanced at him, and my heart instantly sank. In his previous life, after Gu Chen was promoted to dean, it was he who took over the position of department head. I had seen him more than once in front of Gu Chen and Su Lin. He was like an obedient dog, at their beck and call. With his intervention, Gu Chen only froze for a moment before returning to his usual cold indifference. He pushed me aside, his face full of impatience. Stop being so suspicious all day long. Go and handle the discharge procedures, then get back to your mother's house. You're an embarrassment. Holding back my tears, I grabbed his sleeve with my other hand. Gu Chen, if you want to drive me away, fine, but you have to return the money to me first. Gu Chen was taken aback, his entire face darkening. What madness are you spouting now? When have I ever owed you money? As a department head, would I owe money to a factory worker like you? How ridiculous. Seeing his indignant expression, I gave a faint smile and pulled out a cloth bundle from my chest, inside which was a stack of letters. During the years Gu Chen was studying out of town, whenever he ran out of money, he would write to me asking me to send him some. Fortunately, I was naive enough back then to carefully wrap every letter he sent and keep them in the small bag I carried with me. I unfolded the yellowed letter paper and read it word by word. This is the one you wrote when you first started school, asking me to send you 200 yuan for living expenses. This letter is where you asked me for 1,000 yuan to pay your tuition, and this one, where you said you needed 300 yuan to treat your teachers and classmates to a meal. I read through each letter one by one, and Gu Chen's face grew paler and paler. He pulled me over abruptly, gritting his teeth and whispering, enough. Do you really think this isn't embarrassing enough? I know, I'll find a way to pay you back later. I've heard those words countless times before, and in the past, I would always tell him with a blissful smile that he didn't need to repay me, but now, I just coldly grabbed him by the collar. Gu Chen, I just had surgery and can't work, you haven't contributed a single penny to the household in years, how am I supposed to survive? If you don't pay it back, I'll come to the hospital every day and make a scene, so everyone can see what kind of face the great department head really has. Gu Chen, flushed with anger and humiliation, reached out to push me away. I sneered and kicked him in the calf. He gasped in pain and was about to start cursing, but I wiped my tears and slumped to the ground. The Andes watching couldn't stand it any longer and quickly helped me up. Director Gu, she is still your wife after all, how could you treat her like this? Regardless, she just gave birth and needs to nourish her body, you can't possibly give her no money at all, can you? Gu Chen's face turned pale and then flushed, the veins on his forehead bulging. After a long while, he gritted his teeth, glared at me fiercely, pulled a wad of money from his bag, and threw it in my face. This is my salary I just got this month, I haven't touched a single cent of it, I'll give it all to you, and I'll figure out the rest somehow. Take the money and get out of here. I must have had the worst luck in 8 lifetimes to have married a wife like you. I wiped away my tears and hurriedly picked up all the money. I counted it carefully, exactly 800 yuan, not much, but at least it's the first sum of money I've managed to get from Gu Chen in these past few years. From now on, I will reclaim every single debt he owes me, one by one. After completing the discharge procedures, I packed up my belongings and prepared to leave the hospital. As I passed by Gu Chen's office, through the slightly ajar door, I saw him holding Su Lin in his arms as if no one else was around. I quietly walked to the door, where Gu Chen's deliberately lowered voice came from inside. Don't be angry, it's just 800 yuan, isn't it? Haven't I given you all my salary to spend these past few years? Doesn't that prove my sincerity? Su Lin snorted coldly and said sarcastically, so what? She's your wife after all. With just a few words from her, you obediently hand over the money to her. You're only nice to me to please my dad. That's 800 yuan, enough for me to buy 2 outfits. Doesn't Su Xian's mother have poor health and often come to our hospital for medicine? Here's what we'll do, next time, swap out her medication. When her heart condition flares up, I'll take charge of the rescue. After all, no one will know whether I actually save her or not. We'll just say she didn't make it, and I'll cover the medical expenses myself. I'll make sure she pays me back 100-fold. Gu Chen picked her up with a delighted expression. Lin, you're so clever, let's do it your way. I felt a chill run through my entire body. I used to think Gu Chen was just naturally aloof, always lukewarm toward me and my mother, but I never imagined he could be so heartless, to the point of not even sparing my mother. I wanted nothing more than to rush in and perish together with them, but I couldn't. In my previous life, they were ruthless and cruel. The torment akin to 1,000 cuts still sends shivers down my spine. I certainly won't let them off the hook, but I must also avoid putting myself in a dangerous position. Suppressing the hatred, I walked away without looking back. When I returned home, my mother was busy in the kitchen. Seeing me come in, she looked surprised. Xin, why did you come back by yourself? Mom made Gu Chen's favorite braised pork and was just about to take it to the hospital, and also check on you. Before she could finish, I hugged her and began to sob quietly. In my previous life, I rushed to the hospital but didn't even get to see her one last time. Seeing me cry so sadly, she said nothing, only lovingly stroked my head. I held her hand, afraid of upsetting her, and stammered out, Mom, I want to divorce Gu Chen. She understood instantly, her hands trembling as she pushed me away and walked back to her room on her own. A moment later, she took out a small box and placed it in my hand. It's for the best to leave. Back then, both your dad and I thought he wasn't reliable, but you were so devoted to him that we couldn't bring ourselves to stop you. Your dad was afraid you'd suffer, so before he passed away, he left this money, saying that if you ever felt wronged, you could come home and we'd take care of you. I held back my heartache and forced a faint smile. Fortunately, it's not too late. All of this will end tomorrow. I will make Gu Chen and Su Lin face the punishment they deserve, and I will take my mother and daughter away completely, heading toward my own brilliant future. When I arrived at Su Lin's house as promised the next day, her spacious courtyard was already filled with people. Gu Chen was standing side by side with her at the door, greeting the guests, looking as if they were the married couple. When he saw me, Gu Chen's expression turned awkward, and his eyes avoided looking at me. Xin, Shulin is your best friend. Since you're not in good health, I took the liberty of coming to help her. I hope you don't mind. I smiled faintly. Of course, I didn't mind. After all, after today, the true faces of you two scumbags would be exposed to the public. Shulin was holding the child, beaming as she accepted the guest's blessings. When she glanced up at me, a trace of contempt curled at the corner of her lips. Su Xian, since you can't have children anyway, out of pity for you, I'll let my daughter call you godmother from now on. Have you prepared the red envelope? I smiled and nodded, taking out the large red envelope I had prepared long ago from my bag. Su Lin's eyes lit up as she handed the child to Gu Chen and quickly walked toward me. She eagerly reached out to take it, but to her surprise, I grabbed her hand instead. Su Lin screamed in panic. Su Xian, what are you trying to do? Did you lose your mind after your own child died? She swung her bag at me, its sharp metal hardware leaving a long, bloody gash on my face. I didn't care at all, just reached out and grabbed the hem of her clothes. Su Lin, you say this child is yours, then show me your belly. You just gave birth, it's impossible to recover so quickly. Let us all see whether this child was really born by you. Ignoring her resistance, I raised my hand and lifted the hem of her clothes. The next second, I felt as if struck by lightning, frozen in place. On Su Lin's stomach, there was a winding, ferocious scar, exactly like the one I had after my C-section. Yet, in my previous life, just before I died, she had personally told me that she had never been pregnant. She had only pretended to give birth in order to take my child. My mind went completely blank, and even my lips began to tremble. How is this possible? Gu Chen stormed over furiously and slapped me to the ground. He didn't even bother to look at me, only tenderly shielding Su Lin in his arms. Ignoring my humiliation, he softly comforted her for a long time before finally looking down at me from above. Su Xian, what's wrong with you? Lin kindly invited you to the full moon banquet, and you're trying to ruin it out of jealousy. Is that it? Su Lin's father, the hospital director, rushed over upon hearing the commotion. After learning what had happened, he was so furious that he kicked me in the stomach. If it weren't for the fact that you're Dr. Gu's wife, I would have beaten you to death today. Who do you think you are, daring to lift my daughter's clothes? Gu Chen, your wife looks like a rabid dog. Has she been traumatized or developed a mental illness? Coincidentally, I know an expert. You should send her to a psychiatric hospital right away. He cursed loudly and kicked me several more times. I curled up in pain, while Gu Chen just watched me coldly. The people around were all focused on watching the spectacle, with no one willing to get involved. Indeed, most of the people here today are colleagues from the hospital. Su Lin's father is the director, and Gu Chen has just been promoted to department head. No one is willing to offend them for the sake of a stranger like me. Despair washed over me like a tide, and I couldn't help but break down in tears. You're lying. Su Lin isn't pregnant at all. She stole my child and now she's trying to take my husband too. I don't want a man like Gu Chen anymore, but you have to give me back my child. The heart-wrenching cries only brought me more punches and kicks. Su Jingqing kicked and beat me with near madness. You still dare to talk nonsense? You saw the scar on my daughter's stomach. Her innocence has been ruined by you. Believe it or not, I'll beat you to death. Just as I was feeling utterly helpless, someone in the crowd suddenly spoke up, trembling. Wait, I just looked at Su Lin's stomach. Those scars should be from a long time ago, right? I looked up and couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The speaker was a leading figure in the medical field, Professor Zhang Hanyu. In my previous life, I was too grief-stricken to attend today's banquet, so I didn't know he was present. Now that he spoke up, it naturally sparked a flurry of discussion among everyone. No way, Su Lin always seemed so proper. How could she have had a C-section before? I just looked too. Her stomach is completely flat. She really doesn't look like someone who just gave birth. Back then, Dr. Gu said it was a stillbirth, but none of us actually saw it. Could it really be that she stole Su Xian's child? It's hard to say. Dr. Su has always been close to Director Gu at the hospital. Could there be something improper between them? Poor Su Xian, kept in the dark all this time. Not only was her child taken away, but she also ended up unable to have children again. How tragic. Amid the murmurs of the crowd, Su Jingqing's face darkened with rage. Clenching his fists and stiffening his neck, he roared at Professor Zhang, "Mind your own damn business. As her father, wouldn't I know if my daughter had given birth? Don't think that just because you hold the title of professor, you can talk nonsense. Get out of here. You're not welcome in our home." Su Jingqing thought that once he gave the order to leave, someone would naturally escort Professor Zhang out, but to his surprise, this time no one paid him any attention. He was probably so angry that he lost his head. Forgetting that many of the people present had once been students of Professor Zhang, no matter how much they wanted to curry favor with him, no one dared to lay a hand on their own mentor. Professor Zhang wasn't angry either, he just calmly looked at me. Miss Su, you say this child is yours, do you have any proof? I shook my head, and the light in my eyes instantly dimmed. I can't exactly say I'm reborn, even if I did. People would just think I'm crazy. Professor Zhang nodded, looking at me thoughtfully. Have you heard of paternity testing? If you're willing, I can find a way to help you get it done, but it will take quite a long time. In this day and age, from sampling to getting the results of a paternity test, it takes at least a month or more. I have witnessed the tactics of Gu Chen and Su Lin for such a long time. If they manage to hide the child, I might never see her again in my lifetime. I can't afford to wait. And I dare not wait. Seeing my silence, Su Lin pushed through the crowd, rushed up to me, and began shouting at me, pointing her finger in my face. Su Xian, you shameless wretch, you don't even dare to take a paternity test, yet you have the nerve to claim this child is yours. Do you know that kidnapping someone else's child is a crime? If you don't get out of here right now, I'll call the police. I raised my eyes and met her haughty gaze without a trace of fear. Fine, go ahead and call the police. When they arrive, I'll prove that this is my child. As soon as the words were spoken, someone in the crowd immediately shouted about calling the police. Su Lin panicked instantly. She forced a faint smile and reached out to stop those people. I was just saying, such a small matter doesn't need to be made into a big deal. After all, Su Xian is my best friend. How could I bear to see her go to jail? To show her closeness to me, she deliberately linked her arm with mine. I coldly shook off her hand, staring at her with a forced smile. Who said we're best friends? This is a serious matter of child abduction. How could we not call the police? I turned around and knelt before everyone with a look of grievance. Please, help me, that's my child, the one I carried for 10 months and gave birth to. How dare they snatch him away so brazenly? I'd rather die than let this go. I wept bitterly, tears streaming down my face. Eventually, someone couldn't bear to see me like this and, wiping their own tears, helped me to my feet. Don't be so heartbroken. We'll go with you to report this to the police. If it really is your child, we'll make sure justice is served. With that, someone stepped forward and headed toward the door, but just as she reached the door, she was stopped by Gu Chen and Su Jingqing, both wearing grim expressions. Su Lin's face flushed bright red as she slammed the table in a fit of rage, shouting, "Let's see who dares to call the police. My father is the dean. If you cross me, don't even think about getting promoted ever again." Threatened by her like this, those who had been clamoring to call the police hesitated. Seeing that no one dared to move, Su Lin laughed arrogantly. Her gaze toward me was filled with contempt. Su Xian, you dare to make a scene and demand to call the police without any evidence. Today, I won't let you do it. What can you do about it? Watching her arrogant and domineering demeanor, my vision went dark for a moment. My daughter was carelessly thrown onto the table by them, now crying her heart out in anguish. Even though she was just a step away, I couldn't reach out and hold her in my arms. I couldn't hold back any longer, covering my eyes and weeping bitterly. The next second, the courtyard gate was suddenly pushed open. A group of uniformed police officers surged in. Gu Chen and Su Jingqing frantically reached out to block them but failed to stop them. Su Lin stared at the scene in disbelief, her entire face flushing a deep purplish red. She was trembling all over, yet still forced herself to remain calm. Who called the police? Do you not want to keep your jobs? I'll have my dad fire all of you tomorrow. What's the big deal about the police? You're trespassing on private property. I'm going to report you. But this time, no one responded to her. Everyone's gaze toward her was icy cold. Su Lin was so furious she almost spat blood, waving her arms wildly in an attempt to drive the police out. Instead, she ended up being pinned to the ground, unable to move. In the midst of the standoff, my mother stepped into the courtyard. Under my astonished gaze, she gave me a gentle smile. Xin, as long as Mom is here, no one will bully you. Tell the police everything. Don't be afraid, no matter how powerful the Su family is. Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded firmly at her. Turning around to face Su Lin with her bloodshot eyes, he gave a calm smile. Su Lin, I already inquired yesterday. Both you and Xie Han have type A blood, while Gu Chen and I both have type O. If you claim the child is yours, then all we need to do is check the child's blood type to find out who the real parent is, right? Su Lin's face instantly turned deathly pale. She never expected that a factory worker like me would think of using blood type to prove the child was mine, but she probably forgot. if I hadn't voluntarily dropped out of school to support Gu Chen's education, with my grades. My education level might not have been lower than theirs. Soon, someone snapped out of it and started shouting about getting the child's blood tested. Su Lin struggled desperately, trying to stop them. No one is allowed to go. No one is allowed to go. Anyone who dares to take my daughter for a blood test will never work in this hospital again. No one paid her any attention, and soon someone came running from the hospital with the equipment. Half an hour later, the blood test results were out. The arrogance on Su Lin's face completely vanished. She hung her head dejectedly, not saying a word. I took the blood test report, my fingers trembling so much I could barely hold the thin piece of paper. After just one glance, I threw the report and smashed it into Su Lin's face. You wanted evidence, didn't you? Then tell me, how did you and Xie Han, both with type A blood, manage to have a child with type O blood? I lunged at Gu Chen again, tearing at him like a madwoman. And you, that's your own daughter. How could you bear to separate her from me at such a young age? You don't deserve to be her father. Get out. Gu Chen's entire face was scratched to a bloody pulp by me, and he fell to the ground in a disheveled mess. He trembled all over in fear, looking at me with a pleading gaze. Even his voice carried a hint of a sob. Xin, please listen to my explanation. All of this was forced on me by Su Lin and her father. I didn't want to do it either. They used the position of department head to coerce and bribe me, saying that as long as I agreed to marry that worthless Su Lin, they would guarantee I could become the dean in the future. I was forced into it for the sake of giving my daughter a better life. Su Jingqing, who had originally looked ashen and dejected, sat slumped on the ground. Upon hearing Gu Chen's accusation, he could no longer sit still for even a moment. He jumped up and kicked Gu Chen in the ribs, sending him flying backward. If it weren't for you shamelessly clinging to my daughter, promising you'd divorce and marry her, how could my daughter ever have taken a liking to you? So what if she had a child before? Do you think someone like you is even worthy of her? I'll beat you to death, you shameless freeloader. Su Jingqing grabbed Gu Chen by the collar and started pummeling his face. Gu Chen's entire face was swollen and red, and it took him a moment to snap out of his daze before he started wrestling with Su Jingqing. Su Lin also cried and begged me to let her go. Xin, for the sake of all the years we've been best friends, please spare me. I'll give your child back to you, please. Don't send me to prison. Okay. The scene was chaotic, but I was deaf to it all. I only hurried to my daughter, tears in my eyes as I gently lifted her up. With trembling hands, I touched her flushed little face and couldn't help but burst into tears. Thankfully, this time I managed to protect her in time. I will spend the rest of my life making up for the regrets of my past life, letting her grow up well in love. She will no longer suffer from hunger, nor will she endure any grievances. Most importantly, she will have a healthy body. Mom also walked over to me, reaching out to hold me in her arms. A moment later, I took my mother's hand, held my daughter in my arms, and prepared to leave. Seeing that I was about to leave, Gu Chen kicked Su Jingqing aside and threw himself at my feet, clinging to my leg. Xin, from now on, let's live well as a family. I promise I'll treat you and our child right. We've been together for so many years, you can't just give up on me like this. I was wrong. Xin, please forgive me. He wept with tears streaming down his face, yet it stirred not a shred of sympathy in me. I kicked him away in disgust, my gaze as cold as if I were looking at a stranger. Gu Chen, if you had ever felt even a hint of affection for me, you would never have done such a thing. After all this, how can you still have the nerve to beg for my forgiveness? Get out of here now. Just the sight of you makes me sick. Probably not expecting me to be so heartless. He looked at me in disbelief, but he only froze for a moment before a confident smile bloomed on his face. Xin, you must still be angry at me for helping Su Lin take the child away. It's fine, I'll punish her for you right now. Ignoring my coldness, he turned around, grabbed Su Lin by the hair, and without a word, slapped her several times across the face. Su Lin screamed, her gaze toward him filled with hatred. Gu Chen, how dare you hit me? If it weren't for me, would you even be qualified to become the director? How dare you lay a hand on me? They tumbled into a brawl right in front of me. The couple who had been deeply in love in their previous life now seemed determined to kill each other. Watching their frenzied state, my heart remained completely unmoved. No matter what they do, I will never forgive them. Without giving them another glance, I took my daughter and mother and left directly. I heard news about Gu Chen and Su Lin again the day before I was set to leave with my mother and daughter. After I left that day, Su Lin and her father, along with Gu Chen, tore into each other, each scrambling to blame the other. Many previously hidden secrets were exposed in their mutual accusations. The hospital dismissed all three of them and conducted a thorough investigation. It was then discovered that during their years of employment, they had colluded with each other, resorting to any means for money, and had even caused the deaths of numerous patients. I heard that on the day they were detained, many patients' families gathered at the entrance, throwing rotten vegetables and rotten eggs at them. The once arrogant trio hung their heads low, allowing themselves to be beaten and cursed like drowned dogs. During his detention, Gu Chen nearly exhausted all his savings to have someone deliver a letter to me. He said he knew he was wrong and asked if I could bring the child to visit him. I refused without a second thought. I no longer wanted to waste any energy on rotten people or rotten things, and I was about to start a new life. My father had left me a considerable sum of money, and after moving to a new city, I used it to start my own business. 20 years later, my company is about to go public, and my daughter has grown up well under my care. I took her back to visit my father's grave, but as soon as we got out of the car, I unexpectedly ran into Gu Chen. He was squatting by the roadside, with a dirty begging bowl placed in front of him. His clothes were tattered, and he looked as old and worn as an 80-year-old man. The daughter couldn't bear to watch any longer and fished out a few small bills from her bag, placing them in his bowl. Gu Chen lifted his clouded eyes, staring at her for a long time. Perhaps recognizing her as his own daughter, Gu Chen became emotional and tried to lunge forward to grab her. "Anan, is that you? I'm your father, aren't I?" The daughter dodged away with a look of disgust, pinching her nose and glaring at him in displeasure. "I'm not Anan, but I have heard of you. You're Gu Chen, right?" Gu Chen nodded excitedly. "Since it's you, there's no need to give you this money." My daughter took those few loose bills from the bowl, grabbed my hand, and we left without looking back. Behind us came Gu Chen's heart-wrenching cries, but we both tacitly agreed not to turn around. I knew that from then on, he would live in deep, heart-wrenching regret, but I felt not a shred of pity for him. That is the punishment he deserves, and my daughter and I will only live more brilliantly. The heavens have their cycles. Those who do evil ultimately cannot escape their own retribution. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. On the eve of the wedding, I and Gu Nan's white moonlight were both taken hostage by robbers at the same time. The robber made him choose between the two of us, without hesitation. He chose his first love, abandoning me without a second thought. I was brutally murdered by the robber, left without a complete corpse. Given a second chance at life, I decided to leave and let their love flourish. When Gu Nan brought his white moonlight home and said he wanted to lend her the marital home to live in, I nodded silently. "It's fine, she's more suitable to live there than I am. I am Su Yao, a female educated youth sent to the countryside. 5 years ago, I fell into the water, and Gu Nan happened to pass by and saved me. I fell in love with him at first sight. For him, I moved into the Gu family despite all the skeptical and disdainful looks, and devoted myself to taking care of his mother, who had been bedridden for years. Gu's mother was moved by my sincerity and insisted that Gu Nan get engaged to me. After 5 years of waiting, we are finally getting married. The wedding is in just 2 months. A few days ago, Gu Nan called to say he was transferring from the military to the local police force, and we should be prepared. I came to the county town with a heart full of joy and rented a single-story house with a small courtyard. The bungalow wasn't large. Aside from the main hall and kitchen, there were 3 rooms, all empty. I spent 3 whole days running between the supply and marketing cooperative and the scrap yard, gradually filling the entire home bit by bit. Of the 3 rooms, one was used as a study. I placed a small sofa inside, temporarily using it as my sleeping nook. The other room belongs to my fiancé, Gu Nan. He prefers simplicity and cleanliness, so aside from a desk and chair, there's only a wooden plank bed inside. The last, larger room is our wedding chamber. Even though the wedding is still far off, I couldn't resist tidying it up already. A red brocade quilt embroidered with mandarin ducks playing in the water, a large red enamel basin, a red double happiness thermos, and red paper cuttings on the windows. The entire room was red, with every corner exuding a festive atmosphere. All of this should have belonged to me. Unfortunately, I am leaving. I have been reborn. This morning, I woke up and found myself back 2 months before my death. In my previous life, I gave a lot for Gu Nan, but on the eve of our wedding, a ruthless robber captured both me and his beloved white moonlight. The robber forced Gu Nan to choose. Only one could be saved. Without hesitation, Gu Nan chose the white moonlight, and I was brutally murdered by the robber. My throat slit. At the moment of death, I Was reborn. The pain and despair of having my throat slit are still vivid in my mind. I don't want to meet the same fate in this lifetime, so I decided to leave Gu Nan, to let him have his love with his white moonlight. But years of feelings aren't something you can just let go of in an instant. Looking at the wedding chamber before me, I still couldn't help but let my eyes redden. After a long while, I closed the door. Just as I was about to go to the study to pack my luggage, there was a commotion in the courtyard. Soon, a tall figure in a military coat entered, accompanied by a mother and her daughter. It was Gu Nan, who had returned from the army. I recognized the woman as well. Bai Shan, Gu Nan's first love and the wife of his comrade in arms. Gu Nan's comrade had passed away unexpectedly not long ago. His wife, Bai Shan, couldn't get along with her in-laws and was also looked down upon by her sister-in-law from her own family. With no other choice, she had to take her daughter and follow Gu Nan back home. Sister-in-law, hello, Huan, say hello quickly. Bai Shan, dressed in a blue and white checkered coat, greeted them with grace and ease. Huan, my daughter, pouted and turned her head away in a sulk. Bai Shan looked embarrassed. This child, I'm sorry, sister-in-law, it's nothing, I responded with a faint acknowledgement. What a child is like is all taught by adults. There's no need to get angry with a child. After a brief round of introductions, Gu Nan pulled me into the study. And the first thing he said was, Su Yao, Bai Shan is my friend. She's having a hard time raising her daughter alone right now, let's give her a hand. Hearing those words again, I couldn't help but find it laughable. A man about to get married, going to help a widow with a child. If word got out, everyone would gossip behind his back, yet Gu Nan put on such a righteous and solemn air, looking like a good Samaritan. If I didn't know what he was thinking, I might have been easily fooled by him. In my past life, I was exactly like that, foolishly helping others, only to end up with a tragic outcome. Alright, go ahead and help. Anyway, I've already decided to leave, it doesn't matter anymore. Gu Nan was very pleased with my understanding and consideration. Su Yao, I knew you would agree, you've always been so kind. I let out a bitter laugh in my heart. A kind person, yet they do not meet a good end. How truly ironic. I stepped out of the study. Bai Shan's daughter, Huan, came skipping over. She tugged at Gu Nan's hand, swaying and coquettishly pleading, Uncle Gu Nan, I want to stay in that room, it's so beautiful inside. She stretched out her hand, pointing toward the bridal suite. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to open my mouth and say something, but nothing came out. Gu Nan smiled and patted Huan's head, his face full of affection as he said, all right, you can stay, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Brother Gu, is this really appropriate, after all? Bai Shan walked over, her face full of hesitation and unspoken words. This was her usual trick, always saying only half a sentence, leaving the rest for others to take the initiative to say. Gu Nansheng, afraid she might feel wronged, waved his hand dismissively. It's fine, you can stay as long as you like, Xia won't mind. When he finally took in the layout of the wedding room, his expression barely changed. Su Yao, Bai Shan and the others are just staying for a few days, I'll make arrangements for them to move out soon, don't worry. I nodded silently. All right, it's more suitable for her to move in than me. Gu Nan's expression faltered, his brows furrowing. Su Yao, don't overthink things, okay? I already told you, Bai Shan and I are just friends. I didn't say a word. In my past life, I disagreed and had a huge argument with him. Gu Nan said I was being unreasonable and didn't know what was important. But now I'm doing exactly as he wishes. He still finds other reasons to scold me. There's a saying that's right. When love is gone, even breathing is a mistake. I turned around and went straight back to the study. Just as Gu Nan was about to follow, he was stopped by Bai Shan. Brother Gu, it seems sister-in-law isn't welcoming us. Maybe I should take Huan and leave. Gu Nan immediately grew anxious. Where are you going? This place is unfamiliar, and you're alone with a child. Where could you possibly go? Bai Shan, but what if sister-in-law gets upset? What if she leaves in a fit of anger? Gu Nan snorted coldly. Don't worry about her. Where could she possibly go? Without me, she has nowhere to go. In an instant, my heart turned ice cold. Gu Nan was right. I truly had nowhere to go. I had been an orphan since childhood, raised by my aunt and her family. Back then, to repay a favor, I took my cousin's place and went to the countryside in her stead. Not long after arriving in the countryside, I accidentally fell into the water. After Gu Nan saved me, I moved into his home. All these years, I've been busy taking care of Gu's mother and haven't grown close with the educated youths in the commune. If I were to suddenly move back now, it would surely stir up gossip. As for the Gu family, although Mrs. Gu's health has mostly recovered, she is still quite weak, she treats me very well, like her own daughter. I don't want her to know about these troublesome matters, lest she gets upset and her condition starts to relapse. Originally, I had planned to stay at a guest house for a few days, but now, Gu Nan is belittling me right in front of his beloved. Suddenly, I don't want to leave anymore. I can't accept it. I gave him 5 years of my youth, took care of his widowed mother on his behalf, and wholeheartedly prepared our wedding home, only for an outsider to reap the benefits in the end. I don't know where the courage came from. I haphazardly gathered up the clothes, I opened the door and walked straight into the wedding chamber in front of the three of them. With a loud bang, I slammed the door shut. Outside the door, Huan's crying and Baishan's comforting voice instantly echoed. Gu Nan angrily slapped the door, demanding that I open it. I buried my head firmly in the pillow, turning a deaf ear. Furious, Gu Nan left a harsh remark. Su Yao, you're something else. Not long after, I heard the sound of the courtyard gate closing. It was Gu Nan taking Baishan and the others out. I turned around, lying on the warm, bright red quilt. My heart felt unbearably sour. Gu Nan wasn't like this before, although at the very beginning, he had no interest in me whatsoever, but after 5 years of my relentless pursuit, he gradually grew to like me. Gu Nan was very busy in the military, rarely coming home, almost only once every year or two, so every month, it was me who called and wrote to him. It took 2 years for his responses to shift from impatient to gentle, and for him to start calling me Io. For the next 3 years, he would take the initiative to write to me, sharing interesting stories from the military. Sometimes during our phone calls, we could talk for so long that the receiver would grow warm. Every time he came back, he would give me a big hug and take me to the state-run restaurant for delicious food. Originally, everything was moving in a very positive direction, but the appearance of Baishan completely disrupted Gu Nan's heart. Baishan was a nurse, beautiful in appearance and cheerful in personality, very popular in the military. Gu Nan once had feelings for her, but after Baishan chose another man from a wealthy family, those feelings were buried deep in his heart. Baishan was Gu Nan's good friend, and also the unattainable white moonlight in his life. If her husband had not passed away unexpectedly, Gu Nan would never have done anything inappropriate, but now, he has lost control. Disregarding the judgment of the world, he resolutely brought Baishan and her daughter home, completely forgetting that I, his fiancée, was still waiting for him at home. Later, he even abandoned me for his first love, leaving me to die with unfulfilled regrets. Should hate him, but I just can't bring myself to. If Gu Nan hadn't saved me, if I hadn't fallen in love with him at first sight, if he had never liked me, then I could have easily hardened my heart and taken revenge on him, but unfortunately, these things truly happened. I couldn't bring myself to be ruthless, so I chose to leave. My gaze fell on the calendar hanging on the wall. 10 days left. The university admission notice will be issued. In my previous life, for Gu Nan, I resolutely tore up the admission notice and stayed home to prepare for marriage. In this life, I won't be that foolish. 10 days will pass quickly. By then, I'll be able to leave this place for good. The next day at noon, Gu Nan returned, holding an oil paper package in his hand. You haven't eaten yet, have you? I saw the state-run restaurant selling roast duck, so I bought one for you. I was a bit stunned. Just yesterday we were in the middle of a cold war, and today Gu Nan bought me roast duck. This isn't like his usual style. In the past, whenever we argued, Gu Nan would never take the initiative to make up with me. It was always me who apologized and sought reconciliation. I never thought he would have a day of bowing his head. What are you thinking about? Hurry up and eat. It won't taste good once it's cold. Gu Nan tore off a large duck leg and placed it in my hand. My heart warmed. I love eating roasted duck legs the most, and he still remembers. The skin of the roasted duck leg is golden and crispy, and with one bite, the aroma fills the mouth. It's really too delicious. My eyes lit up, and I started eating it in big mouthfuls. Gu Nan just looked at me quietly, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. I urged him, eat. Why are you staring at me? I won't eat anymore. There's something I need to ask of you. I turned my gaze toward Gu Nan, hearing him continue. Yao, Baishan and Huan have no relatives in this place, and it's inconvenient for me to take them in and out. Why don't you just tell people they're your distant relatives, and I'm helping to look after them? That way, no one will gossip. In an instant, the duck leg in my mouth suddenly lost its flavor. So that's how it is. I wondered why he suddenly became so attentive. It turns out it was all for his beloved. A wave of bitterness rose in my throat, and I set down the duck leg in my hand. With a calm expression, I said, I don't have any distant relatives. You can say it's yours. Gu Nan's expectant expression froze. Su Yao, how did you become so petty? Are you overthinking things again? No, I'm full. do as you please. I wiped my hands, stood up, and prepared to leave. Suyao, Gunan suddenly stood up, glaring at me fiercely. What on earth are you making a fuss about? We're getting married in 2 months, don't you trust me? Looking into his angry eyes, I suddenly smiled. Gunan, if I brought a man home and said I wanted to lend him the wedding house, would you agree? Gunan's face flushed with urgency, and he opened his mouth to explain. Just then, from outside the door came the anxious cries of Huan, Uncle Gunan, woo-woo, my mom is gone. Gunan left, he left in a hurry, not even sparing me a glance. Should have known, between me and his first love, he would always choose her. I shouldn't have had any expectations. I sat back down, the fragrant roast duck was still warm, at its most delicious moment. It couldn't be wasted. I ate the roast duck. One bite after another, salty tears moistened the crispy duck meat, a little sour, a little bitter. Let go, Suyao, I said to myself in my heart, this person isn't worth your lingering affection. Unconsciously, I actually finished an entire roast duck. The consequence is that my stomach is uncomfortably full. I decided to go out for a stroll to help my digestion. As I walked along, I arrived at the entrance of a state-owned barbershop. An elderly man was lazily dozing in a reclining chair, basking in the sun. Seeing me standing still for a long time, he lifted his eyelids and glanced at me. Young comrade, need a haircut? I shook my head. No need, the old man urged. Get a haircut. Since the college entrance exams were reinstated last year, society has opened up a lot. Many young people come to me for trendy hairstyles. It's a shame not to cut your hair when you're so handsome. I touched the 2 braids hanging over my chest, feeling a little tempted. What girl doesn't want to become a little more beautiful? Then go ahead and cut it. In the end, I still walked into the hair salon. An hour later, looking at myself in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize who I was. The once thick and long braids were cut off in an instant, turning into a refreshing short hairstyle. It made my oval face look youthful and lively, making me appear several years younger. The barber, an elderly man, looked at me with a smile. Little comrade, I told you, short hair suits you perfectly. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you, sir. I paid with a smile and walked out of the barbershop. Perhaps it was because of the new hairstyle, my previously heavy mood suddenly brightened. The gray street before me also became much brighter. I thought, it's time for me to change, not for others, but for myself. I went to the supply and marketing cooperative. Gunan served in the military for many years, and his allowance increased year by year. Each time, he sent most of it back home. Gu's mother was grateful for my care and would give me 3 yuan every month to save. After 5 years of saving, aside from some necessary expenses, I still had 150 yuan left along with a few ration coupons. In the past, I lived frugally, never daring to spend recklessly. When my clothes and shoes wore out, I would mend them and wear them again and again. But later, the money wasn't spent at all, yet the person died. Given a second chance, I decided not to be so frugal. Spend when it's time to spend. I bought a lot of things at the supply and marketing cooperative. No hair accessories, a sky blue gauze headscarf. It is, the face is red and chapped from the cold wind. A bottle of vanishing cream is needed. The autumn clothes and pants have been washed until they're stiff, so 2 sets for changing must be bought. The pants are patched up, so a new pair should be bought to replace them, and the rubber shoes have come unglued, with the big toe cracked from the cold. A brand new pair of cotton shoes, once slipped on, quickly warmed up. After buying something at each counter, I immediately put it to use. In no time, I felt completely refreshed. I glanced at the dusty cotton coat I was wearing. His gaze swept across the coat counter, finally settling on a sky blue overcoat. Comrade, could you please show me that blue coat? While trying on the coat, even the aloof salesperson behind the counter couldn't help but praise. Comrade, you look really good in this coat. Many people have tried it on before, but it suits you the best. I smiled and said, thank you. I'll take this coat. How much is it? The counter salesperson replied. This one is quite expensive. It was sourced from Shanghai and costs 55 yuan plus a fabric ration coupon. I nodded. That's fine, I'll take it. I still had over 120 yuan in my pocket, which was more than enough. Just as I was about to pay, a surprised voice suddenly came from behind me. Suyao. I turned around and met a pair of eyes as dark as ink. Ayao, it really is you. Gunan stared at me intently, a fleeting look of admiration flashing in his eyes. You look very beautiful today. The clothes you're wearing suit you perfectly. Thank you. I nodded indifferently, my gaze sweeping past the 2 figures standing beside him. Baishan greeted me with a bright, cheerful smile. Then, from my perspective, I could see him pinch my daughter Huan Huan hard. Huan Huan immediately cried out in pain. Gu Nan withdrew his gaze from me and looked at Huan Huan with a worried expression. Huan Huan, what's wrong? Huan Huan bit her lip, glancing timidly at Bai Shan, then she spoke up, Uncle Gu Nan, my mom likes this dress too, could you buy one for her as well? Gu Nan didn't hesitate and nodded immediately. Of course. Bai Shan put on a show of modestly declining a couple of times but ultimately accepted, but unfortunately, this style of coat is the last one left, and I bought it, I've already successfully paid for it. I wanted to leave, but Gu Nan wouldn't let me. Su Yao, how about you give this coat to Bai Shan? I'll pay you double the price. Okay, I won't give it up, I firmly refused. I can let go of a man who has changed his heart, but what belongs to me, I will never let go of. Gu Nan furrowed his brows. Su Yao, you know perfectly well how difficult it is for Bai Shan to raise a child alone, yet you insist on opposing her. There's something wrong with your attitude. I had intended not to respond, but I simply couldn't hold back any longer. Gu Nan, what you're saying is truly laughable. Is it my fault that she lost her husband? Is it my fault that she took over our marital home with her child? Is it my fault that she wanted me to give up my clothes just because she liked them? A triple question left everyone speechless. The counter clerk, who had been munching on sunflower seeds while watching the drama, spat out a seed shell with a ft. I was wondering why I smelled something fishy. Even as a widow, you still dare to seduce someone else's partner. How shameless. Bai Shan's face turned pale, and her body began to sway unsteadily. Sister-in-law, I never knew you thought of me that way. I can't go on living. With that, she covered her face and ran out, sobbing. Mom. Huan Huan burst into tears in an instant. Gu Nan's face darkened as he roared at me. Su Yao, you're absolutely unreasonable. If anything happens to Bai Shan, I will never let you off. After making his bold statement, he picked up Huan Huan and immediately chased after her. The counter salesperson was left dumbfounded. Comrade, is that person really your partner? Having worked at the supply and marketing cooperative for many years, she had seen all kinds of women. That Bai Shan looked so fake at first glance. To give up your fiancé for such a person, what a pig-headed fool. The counter lady looked utterly indignant. I let out a bitter laugh and replied to her, she was, but not anymore. The lady at the counter understood what I meant. No worries, just dump him, I'll introduce you to someone better. Thank you, sis, I smiled from the bottom of my heart. You see, even a stranger can show me kindness, yet the one I love most has hurt me the deepest. Back home, Gu Nan is actually here too. Welcome back. His voice carried a hint of apology. I ignored him, brushing past him and heading straight into the wedding chamber. After putting away all the things I had bought, I lay down on the bed to rest for a while. When I went out again, Gu Nan was still standing in the same spot. Su Yao, let's talk. Talk about what? Has Bai Shan been found? Don't come blaming me again if she runs off later. Gu Nan's face instantly darkened. Su Yao, do you have to be so harsh every time you speak? I've told you there's nothing between me and Bai Shan. Why won't you believe me? I'm so tired. I don't want to argue with him about this anymore. You know, people only get so angry and embarrassed when their inner pain points are hit. Gu Nan, you know it in your heart. Gu Nan almost fled in a panic. I returned to my room in silence, my gaze involuntarily drifting toward the wall. 9 more days. In 9 days, I can leave this place of sorrow forever. Gu Nan, you should be happy about that. Somehow, the news of my Cold War with Gu Nan reached his mother's ears. Early the next morning, a frail little old lady, huffing and puffing, appeared at the doorstep carrying a large bundle. Mom, what brings you here? I was pleasantly surprised and quickly took the burlap sack from her hands, inviting her inside, but the little old lady didn't move, staring at my face again and again. Yawazi, why have you gotten so thin? With just that one sentence, my tears began to fall. The little old lady's face immediately changed, and she turned to walk out. Did that brat Gu Nan bully you? I'm going to settle the score with him. I quickly stopped her. Mom, it's nothing, listen to me. I told a lie to the little old lady. I said that Gu Nan has been busy with his career transition since he came back these past few days, and he hasn't had any time to spend with me. That's why we had a conflict. As for that mother and daughter pair, Bai Shan, I'm aware of them too. Gu Nan was just helping out of kindness. The old lady was still a bit suspicious, but I managed to brush it off with vague answers. Mom, I'm hungry. As soon as the words were spoken, the little old lady immediately went into the kitchen to get busy. I followed him inside. I brought you a lot of vegetables from my own garden, including your favorite lettuce and Chinese cabbage. I also brought some vermicelli to make a stewed cabbage with vermicelli for you, and don't you Dare skimp on eating eggs. I bought 50 free-range eggs from Aunt Ma next door and brought them all for you. Remember to eat one every day. The little old lady chattered away as she pulled things out of the burlap sack. Tears instantly blurred my vision. Mom, you go ahead with what you're doing. I'm going to use the restroom. Choking back tears, I fled the kitchen as if running for my life, hiding in the bridal chamber. I covered my mouth and cried bitterly when the little old lady knocked on my door. I had already composed myself, eyes a bit red and swollen, still got caught, but she didn't say anything, just kept putting the dishes I liked into my bowl. We finished lunch in silence, yet with a warm sense of comfort. After finishing the meal, the little old lady was ready to head back. Before leaving, she tightly held my hand, her face full of heartache as she said, "Yawa, if that rascal treats you poorly, just come home. The door will always be open for you." I nodded, my eyes welling up with tears once more. "I'm sorry, little old lady, I broke my promise. I won't be coming back home anymore. There are still 8 days left. In 8 days, the university admission letter will be in hand, then I can go to the educated youth office to get the certificate and leave this place." Countdown to departure, day 7. I did nothing all day, just curled up in the new house and slept, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fall asleep. My mind was a mess, and my head was splitting with pain. After much thought, I decided to go back to the countryside and have a clear talk with the old lady. After all, we had lived together for 5 years, and our relationship had always been good. I couldn't bring myself to leave without saying goodbye. Early the next morning, I returned to the countryside. Seeing me back, the little old lady was overjoyed. "Last night, and he gave me a few crucian carp, and just as you came back, I'll make you a bowl of crucian carp and radish soup. It's incredibly fresh." Besides the crucian carp and radish soup, the little old lady also made egg pancakes and spicy cabbage, all of which are my favorites. After the meal, I ate until my entire stomach was completely full. After dinner, I insisted on washing the dishes and tidied up both the room and the yard. Finally, I spoke up, "Mom, let's go out for a walk." The countryside in the afternoon was very quiet. Holding the little old lady's hand, I walked quietly along the country path, my heart equally at peace. Halfway through our walk, the little old lady suddenly asked me, "Yawazi, do you have something to tell me?" I stopped in my tracks and finally told her the truth. "Mom, I'm sorry, I might not be able to become your daughter-in-law." In front of the little old lady, I didn't say a single bad word about Gu Nan. Just tell her that Gu Nan and I are incompatible, and I don't want to marry him anymore. The little old lady didn't believe it and quickly asked me what had actually happened. I told her that Gu Nan doesn't have me in his heart, he actually has someone he likes, and I chose to let go and let them be together. Upon hearing this, the little old lady stomped her feet angrily, saying she would go find Gu Nan to demand an explanation. I directly refused. A person who has already changed their heart cannot be persuaded back, no matter how much you try. I also didn't want to see the old lady and Gu Nan make things too ugly. After all, they are mother and son, they shouldn't become estranged because of an outsider like me. That night, I lay under the same blanket with the little old lady, sharing many heartfelt words. The little old lady sighed throughout. "Ah, that brat really doesn't know how lucky he is. He doesn't even appreciate how wonderful you are. I'll definitely give him a piece of my mind later." "Yawazi, don't be sad. That brat isn't lucky enough to marry you. Why don't you just become my daughter from now on? We'll live well together, just the two of us." I didn't respond, pretending to be asleep. 6 more days. If the little old lady knew I was leaving, she'd probably be very sad. Last night, I fell asleep unusually well and slept soundly. After breakfast, I said goodbye to the little old lady and headed back to the county town. As soon as I opened the door to my home, I froze in shock. In just 1 day away, the house had completely transformed. In the main room, children's toys and shoes were scattered all over the floor, a complete mess. A bad premonition stirred within me, and I quickened my pace toward the bridal chamber. As soon as I pushed the door open, my breath caught in my throat. The red brocade quilt I had meticulously prepared was tossed haphazardly on the floor, marred by several muddy footprints. The enamel basin and thermos flask lay overturned nearby, water spilling everywhere across the floor. The red paper cutouts on the windows had been torn to shreds. The new clothes I had just bought from the supply and marketing cooperative a couple of days ago were also pierced with several holes by scissors. Especially that sky blue coat. I had carefully folded it and placed it at the head of the bed, planning to wear it on the day I left, but someone maliciously splattered it with red ink. The once beautiful and stylish coat was utterly ruined, just like my heart, which was also torn to shreds. With trembling hands, I picked up that piece of clothing, ruined, everything is ruined. Footsteps sounded outside the door. Ayao, are you back? Gu Nan looked at me with a face full of surprise. When his gaze met my ashen expression, his smile faltered. Ayao, Gu Nan, I cut him off, speaking each word deliberately. Let's call off the engagement. Gu Nan's expression instantly darkened. Io, do you have any idea what you're saying? I looked at him coldly. Do I need to repeat myself? Gu Nan gritted his teeth. I disagree. I refuse to cancel our engagement, sister-in-law. Is it because of me and Huan? If so, maybe we should just leave. You shouldn't argue with Brother Gu and let outsiders see it. As a joke, Bai Shan said this, but her eyes couldn't hide a hint of schadenfreude. Her words truly cut to the heart. By saying, argue, she shifted all the blame onto me, making me seem overly petty. Sure enough, Gu Nan was feeling a bit upset. Hearing this, his expression grew complicated. Su Yao, you're being too willful. You can't threaten me by calling off the engagement. That's not right. I don't. What? I said. I'm not threatening you. I really don't want to marry you anymore. I watched as Gu Nan's face gradually turned pale, his lips trembled, and he stared at me blankly, about to say something. Suddenly, a crisp sound of a slap rang out. Accompanying it was Bai Shan's furious voice. It's all your fault, you wretched girl. If you hadn't messed with Aunt Suyao's things, why would she have argued with your uncle Gu Nan? Apologize to her right now. Huan covered her face and wailed loudly, crying and apologizing to me between sobs. I didn't look at her, turning my body away instead. Bai Shan slapped Huan on the head again, ordering her to kneel down and apologize to me. Gu Nan couldn't stand it any longer. Enough, Su Yao, how long are you going to keep this up? Do you have to turn this house upside down? Hurry up and apologize to Bai Shan and Huan. A sharp, stabbing pain instantly spread through my chest. So this is what it feels like to be utterly disappointed. Clearly, I'm the one who's been wronged, so why does it feel like I'm the one who made a mistake? Why is this happening? Why does Bai Shan get to take everything away from me the moment she arrives? I won't apologize. I'm not wrong, I shouted out, my eyes frighteningly red. Gu Nan was startled by my expression. I had never lost my composure like this in front of him before, which left him feeling quite flustered. Su Yao, calm down. Let's talk this out properly. Seeing the situation take a turn for the worse, Bai Shan quickly pulled her daughter Huan down to kneel. Sister-in-law, I apologize to you. It's all our fault. Please don't blame Brother Gu. Forgive him. Gu Nan's expression immediately changed. Bai Shan, what are you all doing? Get up quickly. Stop kneeling. No, Bai Shan cried, tears streaming down her face like raindrops on pear blossoms, shaking her head. If sister-in-law doesn't forgive you, we won't get up. Seeing her hypocritical act, I truly felt sick to my stomach. Then you can kneel for a lifetime. Su Yao, Gu Nan's voice suddenly rose, his face full of disappointment as he looked at me. How could you become like this? I'm so disappointed. I didn't want to waste any more words on him and turned to leave. Just as Gu Nan reached out his arm to stop me, Huan suddenly let out a sharp scream. Ah, Mom, what's wrong with you? Bai Shan fainted. Su Yao, are you satisfied now? Look at what you've done. Gu Nan glared at me through gritted teeth, quickly picked up Bai Shan, and hurriedly left with Huan lying in his arms. Bai Shan secretly opened her eyes and gave me a triumphant smile. At this moment, I felt utterly powerless. A surge of desire to get back at her welled up in my heart, but I still held back. I don't want to have any more entanglements with them. I can't ruin Gu Nan either, even for the sake of the old lady. I can't ruin him. Out of sight, out of mind. That night, I moved out of there and checked into a guest house. There were still 5 days left. In 5 days, would be free. Gu Nan stayed with Bai Shan at the hospital for 2 days. Even though she was perfectly fine, he still took great care of her. Even the nursing staff couldn't help but praise him. Comrade, you're so good to your wife. If I had a husband like you who knows how to take care of someone, I'd probably wake up laughing in my dreams. Gu Nan was stunned. He really wanted to say that Bai Shan wasn't his wife, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. So in the eyes of outsiders, he and Bai Shan were actually that close. No wonder Su Yao had misunderstood him. He wondered how she had been doing at home these past 2 days, and whether she had been crying. Maybe he should go back tonight. Just as he thought this, a weak voice came from beside him. Brother Gu, my heart hurts so much. Gu Nan's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately stood up. I'll go find a doctor. No need. Bai Shan grabbed his arm, making him sit down. Just keep me company and talk with me. As she spoke, she continued, I wonder how sister-in-law is doing. She's probably still angry with you. Maybe once I'm better, Huan and I should leave. I don't want to cause any trouble between you two. Gu Nan's brows furrowed deeply. Bai Shan gave Huan a meaningful look, and Huan immediately burst into tears. Wah, mommy, I don't want to leave. We have nowhere to go, Uncle Gu. Please don't make us leave. Huan shed pitiful tears, which made Gu Nan's heart ache terribly. Don't cry, Huan. Uncle won't drive you away, I promise. Bai Shan bit her lip. But what about sister-in-law? She's sure to mind. Gu Nan snorted coldly. If she minds, she can move out. As soon as the words were spoken, a slender figure rushed in, holding a rolling pin in hand. He immediately started hitting Gu Nan with a flurry of blows. You little brat, you're really going to be the death of me. You don't want a good girl like Yao, and instead you go for a seductive widow. No wonder Yao's eyes are swollen from crying. You come back with me right now and apologize to her, or I'll never forgive you. Mom, stop hitting me. Gu Nan was beaten until he fled in panic. In the end, he had no choice but to snatch away the rolling pin. The little old lady, still furious, gave him a few hard slaps on the back with her hand. Give me the rolling pin, I haven't finished beating you yet. Bai Shan got down from the hospital bed and walked over weakly, trying to persuade her. Auntie, please calm down. The little old lady pushed her away roughly. Damn vixen, get the hell away from me. Huan immediately rushed over. Don't you dare bully my mom. The little old lady glared at her. The child of a fox spirit is no good either. Gu Nan couldn't take it anymore. Mom, that's enough. Stop talking. The little old lady looked at him with an expression of disbelief. Gu Nan, how dare you yell at me for the sake of that vixen? Are you still my son or not? Gu Nan, Mom, Bai Shan once saved my life. You can't talk about her like that. The little old lady glared at him. Yawa Zi also saved your life once. Why are you hurting her feelings like this? What? Gu Nan was stunned. When did she ever save me? The little old lady. It was during last year's Dragon Boat Festival. She secretly went to see you and came back covered in injuries. That very night, she developed a high fever. If she hadn't mumbled it herself in her delirium, I wouldn't have known she nearly lost her life for you. Yao was afraid I'd worry, so she never told me about it. I thought you knew, so I never mentioned it to you. Gu Nan's face instantly darkened. He mechanically turned his head, his gaze dark and gloomy as he looked at Bai Shan. Bai Shan, didn't you say it was you who saved me? Countdown to departure, Day 3. Gu Nan appeared at the entrance of the guest house. He stopped me with a sincere look on his face. Io, give me a little time, let's talk. I glanced at him indifferently. These past couple of days at the guest house, I've been reminiscing about a lot of things and thinking deeply. Perhaps I didn't love Gu Nan as much as I thought. It was just because I grew up as an orphan, starved for affection, that I desperately sought it from him, hoping for his response. Now, I've come to a sudden realization. If you want others to love you, you must first learn to love yourself. From now on, I will focus on myself and work hard to become a better person. I've also realized something. I no longer love Gu Nan. Even if he stood right in front of me, my heart wouldn't stir in the slightest. In that case, I have nothing more to say to him. I turned to leave, but Gu Nan grabbed my arm and refused to let go. Io, didn't you come looking for me at the military base during last year's Dragon Boat Festival? I didn't say a word. Last year, I went to find Gu Nan, but accidentally got lost on the way. I stumbled into a mountain forest and unexpectedly came across Gu Nan, who was severely injured while on a mission at the time. He had many wounds and was bleeding continuously, unconscious. It was raining again, and I was worried he would get soaked, so I struggled to drag him to a cave for shelter. That night, the rain was pouring heavily. Gu Nan was running a high fever all along. I was worried to death. While tearing my coat into strips to bind his wounds and stop the bleeding, I used the remaining strips to catch rainwater and placed them on his forehead to cool him down. After a whole night of my efforts, he finally broke his fever. Just as I was feeling relieved, there was a commotion outside. The bandits who had harmed Gu Nan earlier had tracked us down. Fearing that Gu Nan might get hurt again, I put on his jacket and rushed out to divert their attention. After fleeing through the mountains for 2 days and a night, I was rescued by a kind-hearted hunter. He saw me off on the train, and only then was I able to return to the countryside. At the time, I was afraid that Granny and Gu Nan would worry, so I didn't say anything. I never expected Gu Nan to find out anyway. Io, tell me, was it you who saved me? Back then, Gu Nan stared at me intently, eagerly wanting to see the answer on my face. Me, does it matter? Gu Nan was stunned. Yao, I looked into his eyes. Gu Nan, whether I saved you or not doesn't matter anymore. Do you understand? In my past life, I only found out later. It turned out Gu Nan had mistaken who his savior was. He treats Bai Shan so well partly because of this reason. I have explained it to him, but he simply doesn't believe it. I suggested asking the old lady to prove it, but he said his mother is on my side and would definitely help me. I was left speechless, my heart aching to the point of numbness. After being reborn, I had many chances to tell him, but I didn't want to complicate things. After all, nothing matters anymore. Seeing my indifferent attitude, Gu Nan panicked. I can explain. Explain what? Don't tell me you've never liked Bai Shan, that you've never had any thoughts about her. Gu Nan, yes, I admit, I used to like her, but that was a long time ago. If she hadn't lied to me, claiming that she was the one who saved me back then, I would never have contacted her again. This time, when her husband passed away, it was only because I thought she had once saved me that I softened and brought her back. Don't overthink it, okay? I couldn't help but laugh. Gu Nan, even now, you're still lying. Gu Nan's face turned pale. You clearly can't forget your old feelings for her. Yet you can't bear to let go of me, the new person, so you're wavering between us. Did you ever imagine that I could peacefully coexist with Bai Shan and live happily together? What a devoted lover, just a selfish person, that's all. I have completely seen through Gu Nan's true nature, yet Gu Nan himself dares not admit it. Yao, don't say that, I only love you, please believe me. I withdrew my arm and looked at him with disdain. Gu Nan, you truly are a disgusting and nauseating person. Let's end it here. Countdown to departure, 2 days left. Bai Shan appeared with an air of haughty arrogance. She wore a brand new blue coat, boasting, "Is it pretty? Brother Gu bought it for me. He even said if I marry him, he'll buy me a few more pieces." I looked at her face and sincerely suggested, "Big sister, maybe you should go back and slap a few more layers of white paint on your face before going out. The dark circles under your eyes are way too obvious." Bai Shan shrieked angrily. "What's there to be proud of? You're just a pitiful nobody that no one wants." "We'll see about that, we'll see then, we'll see." I am about to embark on a new life and explore a broader world, and how long can the love she schemed to obtain last? I'm looking forward to it. The last day, worried that something might go wrong, I went straight to the post office to pick up my university admission letter. I went to the educated youth office again and completed all the procedures and departure certificates. Finally, I went to the train station and bought a ticket for tomorrow noon to Beijing. Looking at the train ticket in my hand, I showed the happiest smile I had worn in a long time. Finally, I can leave at last. Clang, 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 the green train began to move. I didn't tell anyone about this departure, not even the little old lady, but I left her a large package, which I asked the post office courier to deliver to her. It was packed full of things I had bought for her at the supply and marketing cooperative. The little old lady had been frugal all her life, never willing to use anything, and those items would last her a long time. I gazed out the window at the small town gradually fading into the distance. My heart is filled with melancholy. Farewell, my 5 years of youth. Farewell, my dear old lady. 3 days later, I arrived in Beijing smoothly. Despite having sat on a hard seat for 3 days and 3 nights on the train, I was still full of energy. Gazing at the brand new surroundings, I took a deep breath and smiled brightly. Su Yao, the world that belongs to you is here. For the next period of time, I was extremely busy. Busy with enrolling in school, busy with attending classes, busy working part-time in the cafeteria, busy building connections. Every day was exhausting, yet also fulfilling and joyful. It was a kind of joy that transcended the self. I laugh every day. I never thought that one day I would live so happily. Really, it's too blissful. The day I arrived in Beijing, I called my little old lady right away and told her about my situation. She wasn't the least bit sad. Instead, she laughed heartily over the phone. "Yao, my dear, you're truly my pride and joy. Our family has produced a college student." Hearing her say that, I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. The lingering guilt in my heart also dissipated quite a bit. From then on, every month, I would make a call to the post office back home. From the old lady, I learned about Gu Nan and Bai Shan's recent situation. They still got married. Originally, Gu Nan had wanted to send Bai Shan and Huan Huan away, but Bai Shan went around telling everyone that she was Gu Nan's fiancée, and she often brought him meals at his workplace. At this point, no matter how much Gu Nan tried to explain, he couldn't clear things up. For his future, for Bai Shan's reputation, he married her. But Gu Nan never expected the white moonlight he had longed to marry back home was actually addicted to gambling. Yes, Bai Shan is a gambler. Her former husband had died in an accident while desperately taking on tasks to earn money to cover her gambling debts. This was also The reason why her in-laws and her own family looked down on her, but Gu Nan didn't know that, he was lost in her tender embrace, and by the time he realized it, it was already too late. Bai Shan had actually borrowed money from several of his colleagues and the neighbors next door in his name, all behind his back. Gu Nan nearly spent all the savings he had earned over the years in the military just to clear all the debts. He had originally intended to divorce Bai Shan, but Bai Shan knelt on the ground, slapping herself hard in the face, swearing she would never gamble again. Daughter Huan also knelt on the ground, crying and kowtowing. In the end, Gu Nan's heart softened. Later, the family of three enjoyed a period of peaceful and warm life. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. Bai Shan became pregnant. Upon learning this, Huan, who had always been well-behaved in front of others, suddenly erupted. She had long been suppressed by her mother, Bai Shan, who showed little maternal affection toward her. It was Gu Nan's appearance that saved her, but now, Gu Nan and Bai Shan were going to have a child of their own, then her status would surely return to what it was before, perhaps even worse than before. This was something she absolutely could not tolerate, so one morning, Huan deliberately spilled a bowl of beans at Bai Shan's feet. As she had hoped, Bai Shan fell, had a miscarriage, and could no longer bear children. It was only after Gu Nan's careful investigation that this matter came to light. No one dared to believe that the seemingly soft and adorable Huan could have such an evil side. In the end, it was Bai Shan's fault. If she had properly educated Huan would not have turned out this way. Because of this incident, Gu Nan's feelings for Bai Shan completely vanished. He wanted a divorce again, but Bai Shan was like sticky candy, firmly refusing to let go. Later, a robber, seeking revenge on Gu Nan, kidnapped Bai Shan and Huan, forcing Gu Nan to choose between them. Ironically, this time Gu Nan didn't choose anyone. If the police hadn't arrived quickly, Bai Shan and Huan might have lost their lives on the spot. After this incident, Gu Nan and Bai Shan completely fell out. Their conflict was ugly, with almost daily arguments, and even the neighbors couldn't help but shake their heads when talking about it. The little old lady spoke of these matters with deep sighs. Yawazi, if only Gu Nan had married you back then. Every time he returns to the countryside, he remains silent, and it breaks my heart to see him like that. I didn't tell her that if I had chosen Gu Nan, I might have died. I simply smiled and said, it's all in the past, nothing worth mentioning. Actually, Gu Nan had called me before, saying he regretted it. Then the next day, Bai Shan called, unleashing a hysterical tirade. From then on, whenever I received a call from Gu Nan, I would hang up immediately. He seemed to understand my avoidance and never called me again. 2 months later, I received an anonymous letter. Inside was a silver watch and a piece of letter paper. The silver watch looked very familiar. Remembered seeing it once when Gu Nan and I went to the provincial capital's department store. I really liked that watch at the time, but it cost over 100 yuan, which was especially expensive, and I didn't feel comfortable asking Gu Nan to buy it for me. I never expected he would still buy it, only it was already too late, and the content of the letter was very simple, just 3 words. I am sorry. The entire page was densely filled with writing. The scattered tear stains on it reveal how heartbroken the person writing the letter must have been at the time. But what does that have to do with me? I'll just send the watch back the same way it came. As for the letter, it was burned to ashes, not a single trace left. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. I no longer care for it. My major in university was medical research. Even before graduation, I followed my mentor into the laboratory, conducting experiments day and night. Finally, in the year of my graduation, an experiment I participated in achieved tremendous success. My name was remembered by everyone. My name and photo were even featured in newspapers across the country. The school awarded me a substantial sum of money. I made a special trip to bring Granny to the capital city, planning to take her sightseeing. During this visit, Granny shared some news with me. Unable to endure Bai Shan's torment, Gu Nan applied to serve on the frontier. Unwilling to endure such a hard life, Bai Shan secretly hooked up with someone else, which was discovered by Gu Nan. This time, he finally had a legitimate reason to divorce Bai Shan for corrupting social morals. Bai Shan was sent to work at the county pig farm. As for Huan, Gu Nan sent her back to Bai Shan's maternal home, where she would be raised by her family. The little old lady sighed. Ah, that wretched boy really brought this upon himself, ruining a perfectly good life. He truly deserves it. This time, the little old lady didn't say anything like, if only I had married Gu Nan, because she knew that I had already surpassed Gu Nan by far, and he couldn't even come close to catching up. The little old lady had a great attitude. Apart from sighing a few words on the first day, she was full of energy afterward. I took her to Tiananmen Square to watch the flag-raising ceremony. And we also climbed the Great Wall and ate Peking duck, the little old lady smiled happily every day, telling everyone she met that I was her daughter, a researcher, and praising me for being sensible and filial. Strangers on the street all gave her a thumbs up, and the little old lady smiled even more happily. On the day I was leaving, the little old lady held my hand tightly and said, "Yawazi, you must take good care of yourself out there, and be sure to look after your health. You still have a long and good life ahead of you." "I will, Mama Goo," watching her board the train. I looked up at the sky is clear and boundless, with 1,000 brilliant suns. Since fate has granted me a second chance, this time, I will seize the opportunity and create a life that is truly my own. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.